So, Josh, you all call this partisan coverage filtering. And basically, you're proving what we've sensed for a while, which is Fox viewers are in the dark about bad news for the GOP.
That's right. Fox and CNN cover different issues, and Fox News predominantly covers issues that make the GOP look good and make Democrats look bad. And on the flip side, CNN engages in this partisan coverage filtering as well that we find. For example, during this time, the Abraham Accords were signed, and these were the agreements where Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain signed a major peace agreement. And we see that Fox News covered this really major accomplishment about 15 times more than CNN did. So we established both networks are really engaged in this partisan coverage filtering. It's not about one side, it's about the media writ large.
I think you're engaging in some both sides-ism there, Josh.
Not trying to lay out a moral equivalency. It's not about what an objective standard is. It's really about how all networks do engage in this, and in order for viewers to get a realistic picture of the world, we need viewers to see all types of information. And unfortunately, what we find in this study is that the viewers don't want to engage in watching all sides. So as David mentioned, we see that we pay them for 4 weeks to watch CNN, but then after those payments stop, they go back to watching Fox News. So even though we try to incentivize viewers to watch both Fox and CNN, they don't want to engage in that hard work. They want to really just watch the side that makes them feel good. And this is why the media has such an important responsibility to cover both sides, to hold both parties accountable.
Pressed on with that American creed. Yes, we can.
Yes, together we will make America
better. Welcome to the next episode of Unintelligent Intellectuals, where unintelligence comes first. We are your hosts, Ebony Ivory, continuing the conversation about
with your frameless glasses.
Yeah. Race is 400-year subject in America. Even longer some other places. And with other races. And whatevers. But not according to Whoopi Goldberg. So, without further ado.
You might want to cut that. But that probably won't get big coverage.
Yeah. Yeah, probably won't, because they're like, oh, they can't slap him with that innocent
because he's trying to use the taser.
Yeah.
And he's gripped the barrel of it off of where the prongs are, so he's not getting hit. And then at some point, in them going to the ground, he either has like full control of it, because either he's, you know how the taser is, like he's either got like a full grip control of it, or he actually has the taser. And that's when. Yeah, I mean, he says it 3 times: let go of the taser, let go of the taser, drop the taser, boom, and then he shoots it.
Yeah. That's not gonna. I don't think that's gonna get coverage, because they can't.
There's like some protests, but
you can't.
The fact that you don't know.
With like I remember one time I was talking to somebody about it, and he brought up something that he saw on Facebook. They're like, oh well, this one person, he's in the military. And he said that, well, we have to take write a thing for every round that's fired, and it's like, and if we could hold the military accountable for this, then we should hold police up to the same standard. And I was trying to explain to this guy that being like, I understand that I understand that viewpoint. I understand what you're saying, but there's a contextual difference where the military guy is in a war zone. And so in a war zone, it's like, okay, you're a good guy, those are the bad guys. Or
not even that, but you could be in a situation where there's a heightened
threat level. So
a heightened threat, but you're not in a war type scenario.
Right.
Whereas a wrong gunshot could cause a war.
Right. That's true. Yeah, like if you're in
that's what I meant. Like,
yeah. But and that's like drastically different from being a police officer, where you have to prepare for the same potential outcome. Like, you know, guns could go off and you could die, all the way down to stopping grandma because she's driving too slow on the freeway. So you have to prepare for a wide litany of things, and you don't have proper crisis training over and over and over again drilled into you, so everything's reactionary.
I mean, really, neither does the military.
Yeah, it's essential for military personnel, but like a police officer, like after the academy, that's it. Then you might go 40 years just stopping grandmas on the freeway, then all of a sudden, you pull someone over and they have a potential weapon.
Felony warrants.
Yeah, a little less than friendly, and you're like, I have an idea about this guy. Maybe he's not like the 82-year-old grandma stopped the other day. These tags are expired. He's wrestling with me. He's running away. I thought he's grabbing onto my weapon. I'm telling him to stop. He's not listening. His friends over there like saying some wild shit. I was like, all right, well, I gotta control the situation. I gotta handle this. Is what my job is to handle the situation in order to protect the sir. But if I can't take control over the situation, then I can't do anything for anybody, and then I might die. Like, am I willing to risk my life?
Well, just everybody's set up to failure.
Yeah. And they're like,
I'm not a big guy. How the fuck am I gonna take you out if
Word.
you don't want to go to jail?
I'm not prepared for this. And then it's like, and I'm dealing with the.
I mean, like a white and black scenario.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you don't want to
that
go to
too.
jail. Like, if me and you
Yeah.
we're fighting with my goal of pinning you and putting handcuffs on you, it's gonna be pretty difficult.
Yeah, because like, oh well, this is a little unfair because that's your goal might be like, okay, I'm gonna pin you down to handcuff you, take you to jail, and you don't know, like, oh, maybe he's just trying to get out of going to jail, or he might try to kill me in order to get out of that position. So it's like you have to be prepared for a wide litany of things, and it's not comparable. Like, you can't compare one thing to another. It's false equivalency. It's not the same as being in the war zone, or like you said, a military personnel in a heightened state of threat, whatever. Yeah, but so I'm saying it's good that there's channels like that where they're just like showing like regular interactions, like or possible crisis where it's like, oh, this stuff happens.
You know what just popped into my head? Do you remember that wild commercial that was like a pro cop commercial?
Nah, a pro cop commercial. I don't think
Where it was like a dude that looked like he was mixed or like Spanish or some shit, and it was like a.
Nah, I haven't seen it.
Is there a way we can pull it up?
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug it under here, but because I'm lazy and I don't want to use that other program because it's just weird. Yeah.
It's wild.
It's a pro cop commercial.
Yeah. Like, I think they played it during like the Super Bowl following the Kaepernick shit or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in this array strife, who more than self their courage.
But it was one of these like super pack commercials. So it's this one.
Wow!
Oh, that's a grunt style, did it?
Nigga. Yeah. The Avengers just found their last member. Yo. Holy shit.
Because it's like, I get what they're trying to do, but the last part is like,
excessive.
We're prepared to fucking murder you.
Like Wolverine.
Puts the shield out.
Oh, fuck. The only thing he's missing is, this is... Holy shit. Yeah.
That's a good favorite one of mine.
God damn.
Because I remember I first saw it, I'm like, oh, this is kind of emotional. And then it ended on that. I was like, oh, shit.
And this is why. Well, yeah, like, I mean, like, even when you're pulling over grannies and stuff like that, it's like, it's rare to have a positive encounter. So it's like so it's not like you're dealing with the worst of society. Like it really depends on what area you're where you're,
No, these
like
are
if
just,
you're
these
policing
are just
and
people.
yeah, but it's just like when the cops are called, it's never for like, oh hey, did you want to eat something? Like for the
That's
most part.
besides the point. The problem is people don't understand what they don't understand what jobs are.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
Like you're alpha, you're a Green Beret, you're Navy SEAL. Yeah, do you know what you're doing?
yeah.
You're training.
All the time.
That's literally all you're doing is training tactical situations, response, dealing with pressure, dealing with how to deal with these certain things, going over psychological issues. Oh, hey, we're going to put you through torture scenarios.
Right, yeah.
So then when they then do things, it's like, kid, non-threat, threat, and then they're doing their whole thing, or they don't even fire a gun, and then they just like do what they need to do and get the information that they need.
Right.
And everything is just in and out. Every other job is like the exact opposite of that.
Right.
Unless you're like a fucking professor or like a heart surgeon. Every other profession, you just kind of are just existing. You're not an expert at it.
But I think being a cop is even more wild because like
I'm just using like every job like.
No, I feel what you're saying.
Like firefighters aren't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they've gone through the training like for paramedics, but like.
Yeah, and they deal with like.
And that's a bad example because that's like a simplistic thing. It's
well,
well, how do you deal with like this scenario?
They deal with crisis.
You already know it. But.
They deal with crisis scenarios, but they deal with crisis scenarios.
I picked a bad one because the firefighters already go through the academy.
But it's different though because like I think the dynamic like I hear what you're saying about like regular,
with the cop,
regular
it's like,
jobs.
You're not.
Well, like with a cop,
it's literally just a person with a badge and a gun.
Yeah, it's like
that's who a cop is.
The training that they have to go through, like with the tactical like situations where you have to deal with like eliminating the threat. It's like that's only one purview of their job, but they also have to deal with a whole litany of other things. And like being special forces or in the military and in the time of conflict, that's already hard enough as it is.
It's not about conflict.
No, but I'm saying that
any form of special forces, it's just all they're doing is training.
Yeah, but what I'm saying.
So when it comes to them actually doing something, this is like second nature, and they don't give two fucks.
Right, but what I'm saying, like they have a couple added benefits. They have a large budget behind them, and they have constant training, and so they have a whole system that's set up behind them to support them, and then they have support from back home, psychologically. I mean, granted, it's like. Even with all that, people still come back like torn up. But I'm saying like police officers have those same kind of that experience, that the possibility of having those kind of encounters are still prevalent and more so in certain areas. But on top of that, they don't have the training, they don't have the citizen support, and they have to deal with a whole other litany of things ranging from pulling over a grandma to worst case scenario, somebody possibly trying to kill me. So it's like it's such a complex job.
They're just a person.
Yeah, and people like That's why I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
there are people that work out, and then there are expert bodybuilders.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a little.
Like, there are people that look good and are in great shape to work out, and then there's people who like
count every calorie going into their body and time.
Not only that, but they know like every fluid motion and proper technique.
Yeah. So it's just. I think it's hard for people to make that distinction unless they're touching that lifestyle or close to somebody who's touching that lifestyle. So yeah. So I'm a fan of anything that kind of showcases like, I want to expose people who are otherwise probably not exposed to the possibility that they deal with, because like
nobody cares.
Which is the unfortunate thing. Like I was saying before.
Everybody's worried about themselves and nobody gives a shit.
Well, yeah, which is the fucked up part about it. But they like pretend to care, or they think they care. They have
nobody's worried about
not diving into understand how the other side lives.
Yeah. Nobody's worried about what someone else's potential issues could be.
Yeah. And that's that's a big problem.
Like you say, like we always hear, like that person that got killed has like a family or has a mom. It's like, yo, so does a fucking cop.
Right.
Does that cop not have kids?
Yeah, and they're going to school and then they're getting berated. They're being told that their dad, their mom is a piece of shit.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that prevalent.
You're hyper simplifying.
That might be a lot. No, I'm talking about the mindset. Like, okay, that person has a family and people that love them. It's, well, so does that person.
Yeah.
So what? Because that person has a family, this person's family doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got like.
Instead of looking at them as people, oh, that's a person that happened to. Unfortunately, that's a person who was in that situation that caused this to happen.
What if that guy's got 3 kids with a 4th on the way?
Yeah.
And he's in this like it's just like, oh my god, my wife's pregnant. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Put it down!
I gotta make it.
Damn it! I said put it down. Boom! And everyone's like, what a piece of shit murderer.
Right.
It's like, no, he just didn't want to die that night.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Yeah.
He's got a whole fucking house filled with people that depend on him.
Wants to see his child's face when come out the like yeah. And instead of thinking about things on that case, like that basic level of empathy.
But remember, they were getting their life together, and they were.
Yeah. Jesus. But
it's never somebody who had their life together.
Yeah.
They were doing so good. It's like, hanging around with the gangbangers at 2 a.m. It sounds like you were just doing good.
I mean, sometimes
they were just a kid who was hiding a firearm that was involved in an attempted murder.
Yeah.
The Chicago kid.
Yeah. There's a gross.
Oh, the one that's joining a gang at 13.
Yeah. Oh, how many?
He's just a kid. Yeah, well, most 13-year-olds don't join gangs.
Right. So it's like, and there are stuff that happens, like Philando Castile. It's like, that was a bad reaction.
Was that the North Carolina one?
The dude who was in I don't know where he was, but he was the one who had the gun in the glove compartment.
That was North Carolina. I'm pretty sure that was North Carolina.
Yeah, the girlfriend was recording it. Yeah. But there's stuff that happens, but to like
You said Fernando Castillo.
Fernando Castillo.
What name did you say?
Yeah, Philando. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to remember his name because that was a bad shooting.
Yeah.
Because most of the names that I know are from shootings that seemed to be at least like.
I feel you.
Well, it could go either way.
Right.
Whereas the one that I think was bad, I don't know the guy's name.
I hear you. Yeah. The ones that are bad, I'm just like, oh shit, that's an unfortunate thing, and and that's fucked up, and
I forgot the original I Can't Breathe dude's name, who got choked out for selling loose cigarettes.
Was that Eric Garner?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
At least I know it by name, ear.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm terrible with names, so don't even.
Eric Gardner.
Yeah, but there's bad. I mean, stuff happens, and and not to take away from one person or another, but like you said, we should have the same level of empathy for everybody, or at least a basic level of empathy for everybody. Where it's like, oh well, this person's this cop did this and has a family and he's a wife, he's a child, he's someone's son, there's someone's daughter, And
then we're always under the assumption that the cop is excited that it happened.
Yeah.
So or he's cool.
Right.
He's puffing his chest out.
Yeah.
Got another one of them.
Right. Meanwhile, it's in real life.
Probably 70% of them are dealing with issues and PTSD. It's holy fuck.
Yeah, eating themselves alive. Oh, I can't believe,
or just oh my god, that happened.
Yeah,
that's something that now I have to live with and have dreams about.
And sometimes they'll sit down and they'll keep replaying it in their head and they'll be like,
could have done something different.
Exactly. And then they spin themselves into madness. And sometimes it's it's good that they're doing that, and they'll be able to evaluate and they could have done this better. Oh, that could have been fixed with training. Let's fund this program. Boom.
But we act like they don't have some type of thing that comes after that.
But we can't.
They're just well, that happened.
Yeah.
And they're just autistically staring at a wall, smiling.
Right. Time for the cross burning.
Well, not even that. It's do you have SpaghettiOs? It's not even faze them, and they don't even care.
Yeah. So I mean that's problematic, man. Because it's we're not even treating them like human beings, like you said, and then it's they're dealing with all this kind of stuff, and then like some people are like digging through them like the situation, and then some people like it's a good process, it's a good thing that they're doing that, and that they're able to find something. But we can't even get to that point because we're so focused on exacting that pound of flesh that we don't give a fuck about fixing the problem.
We're looking either to justify the killing or to vilify the cop.
Right.
No one's trying to actually figure out like, oh, was this done correctly?
Yeah, well, this symbolically.
They're either looking to justify it, regardless of whether it was, regardless of how bad it was, or regardless of how much that person, not like necessarily deserved to get killed, but like put themselves in a position where that was going to be the outcome.
Right.
So it's like the dude's. I mean, he was having a mental breakdown, but he was running around with a knife in Philly.
Yeah. And
someone is sprinting around you as you're like trying to backpedal, and it's like are they like on crack? Like, are they high? What's happening? And then someone pulls out a gun, and everyone's like, they don't view us as human beings. It's like, is that what you get when coming out of that?
There was another person there. It looked like they were looking at them.
Just a fucked up thing that happened.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, it's like you said, we're too busy.
You call the cops because this guy's acting crazy and is having a mental breakdown and is brandishing a knife. And then when he tries to go after the cops, he gets shot, and you're all surprised.
No, I don't even think it was that. I think they weren't even lunging at the cops. They were lunging at the other person. So the cop was trying to protect the person who looks like was about to get stabbed.
When they pulled their weapons, or when they fired their weapons, he was coming at them.
Oh, okay. I thought they were coming at the other lady.
But that's what they were called. Was that there was threats of violence and somebody who's having a mental breakdown, because he was having mental health issues and probably some combination of drug use. Maybe not at that point in time, but like a history of drug use with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And then he had the knife, and then he like kind of was walking towards another, and then he turned and ran at one, and both of them were trying to like backpedal and like telling him to drop it, and then they ended up firing him.
Okay. Yeah.
But that one dissipated quickly, but the initial reaction was like,
yeah, I can't believe.
Oh, they don't view us as people.
Yeah.
It's like,
he had mental illness. How come they didn't respond appropriately? This is why we have.
Well,
to
how do you respond? How do you respond to somebody having a mental breakdown, running at you with a knife?
Yeah, the thing is, like, they're not. Cops aren't
you know
trained.
what should have happened is that either the family or some form of government agency should have gotten involved.
Yeah.
And given him help before it gets to the point where he's running around with a knife trying 100%. To kill people.
Yeah, mitigate the effects or the
hey, this person's bipolar and smoking crack. Maybe not wait till something happens.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that person's that they were mentally unstable, but I didn't know about the drug use. But either way, it's
I'm assuming there was a history of drug use.
Okay. But there's like we could look at all
that
those
tends
factors.
to happen.
We could look at those factors and look at like mitigate. Okay, well, like if we put X amount more funding in, if it was a drug situation or mental health situation into that, then we could mitigate, or we could stop these things from happening, these moments from happening because you're.
I said that just because drugs can trigger.
Yeah, that
something.
Issue.
Like,
yeah. I mean,
you're not taking your meds. You're coming off of something, and then there's.
Yeah, then the fallout that comes with that. Yeah, there's a way like have a social worker that checks in with you all the time to double check. But then to have that, then you have to have that program properly funded, and then you have to have them coming out, and then we have to look at the systems that are in place. We have to look past the individuals.
We need insane asylums back.
Yeah, and have like national or even state standards, but there's not. I think that they have institutions, but there's no kind of standards to measure them by.
Because we used to throw people in there all the time.
And same thing with drug rehab facilities. Those aren't like there's not a standard of you could like it could. I don't think there's a regulatory standard to like in order to become this you have to have these things that is like a national board of psychiatrics or looking at and evaluating whether these programs are efficient or not. I think it's just I think there's like a skeleton version of whatever you need in order to have that kind of business open. But then after that, there's no kind of follow up. Like there's more regulation in the food industry than there is in mental health. And it's like granted, food you put in your mouth every day, but mental health is arguably kind of important as well. And so we should have some kind of metric we're measuring it past. But like you said, we can't even look past the individuals. That person deserves to die, or does this person deserve all the vitriol that I'm about to throw at them? Like, we can't move past that to really focus on the big issue.
Or just something shitty happened.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you could do everything right, and so the shit just still hits the fan. And which is what the dangerous part is with the cops who keep on replaying stuff in their head, like, oh, could I have done something all right? Could I have done something
Like,
right?
what happens if you
Better.
tase, like, you're fucking doing something dumb and you get tased, and how your body just kind of contorts and reacts, you end up going head first into the pavement.
Yeah, yeah.
And dying.
Yeah. There's a...
Or at least have some type of, like, long-lasting brain damage.
Right,
Because you
right.
just smashed your skull.
Yeah. And then...
Unprotected on concrete.
Right, and the cop's like, oh, could I have done that better? And then they're replaying it in their head, and then it's
No,
like...
I'm more thinking of the reaction. Oh, well, why did they use the taser? Because it's like, basically, if anything bad happens, it's always, well, why did they just do something lesser?
Right, but it's like the people who are proposing that thing haven't been trained in that level, in that facility, so they don't know what they're... Like, oh, well,
The
they
problem is that most people who are talking shit have never been in a fight or know what it's like to be in a dangerous situation where you can die.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I've been in fucked up situations. That's why I tend to not judge people, because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going through. Because if I had a gun, I would fucking kill these motherfuckers.
Yeah. Or like if you like you think like, oh, let's say like the scenario, like the cop, oh, should I have done something different and not do that? Then next time they don't take excessive force, or they don't go to that level, even though, and they go through the proper channels normally to escalation, but they're so afraid of the blast back that they might get if they react in a bad way. So then they don't react. In a time, there's like a moment of hesitation, and in that moment, a 12-year-old kid dies in front of him, and now he has to go back to work. They'll have to leave and talk to somebody and all that jazz. But this person has to walk around for the rest of his life on his conscience like that shit happened. And so it's like we're not taking those factors into account. So I think it's just lazy when people like look at it with their lazy analysis. Oh, you should have done this. You should have done that. It's like, the fuck you know. Like maybe you do know. And it's like, all right, let's analyze the program.
Maybe you're Jon
overall.
Stewart.
Well, I mean, oh boy. Yeah.
We can bring it back around.
Let's dive back. Yeah. Because this is gonna spiral to a not nice place. All right, so to be fair though, I think Jon Stewart is a hell of a lot better, or his analysis was a hell of a lot better, leagues better, compared to John Oliver's analysis. So it's just like John Oliver's was like disgustingly like avoiding like key.
That's a strong word.
This is fuck, man. I mean, I'm plugging our last video. There's two people arrested because of critical race theory. It's like, no, the one person was arrested because his daughter was raped, and then he found out that this guy raped somebody else, and then he's over here and he speaks up about it.
Ashburn, right?
Yeah, and then they're like, no, you're mistaken. He's like, oh, my daughter was wrong. That guy didn't rape that second person. I made a mistake. My bad. It's like, how do you think that guy's gonna react? So like that kind of shit. I think John Oliver is, and maybe it's not him. Maybe it's the people around him who looked it up. Maybe he's not diving into the details. He was just like, hey, find me some evidence that shows how crazy people are acting at these local communities. So it's just
Well, it's a fucking 30-minute show. Like, they're not.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like in 30 minutes you could still like.
Yeah, but you're also looking to.
He's more focused with the message that he's pushing for than he is about analyzing the specific details, because he's already condemned them in his head.
You can't talk about critical race theory and just say it's sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. But that's
you could talk about there's some necessary aspects of it, but at the same time you can talk about how there's a lot of fucking crazy, insane people.
Yeah.
that talk about it.
See, but I think like he did one show about charter schools, and I thought that was reasonably well done, where he's talking about, okay, well, let's talk about our main story tonight is about charter schools, and he talks about how it's one of the few things that like politically across the aisle, there's a majority support for it's good in these communities, it's good in those communities. But let's move away from that and let's talk about these extreme cases where this bad shit happens with this whole charter school system. And then he dies and then he combs through and rips a new one, which I thought was well done. But he does a good job of separating, like, okay, well, there are some great charter schools out there. Like, I think maybe, I can't remember if it's something that I looked up or if he mentioned on there. Like in Louisiana and New Orleans, like their school system was pretty, wasn't doing too well. But then they introduced the charter school system and it's like the turnaround was been crazy. So it's like, but
Nobody
he
gives
has,
a shit.
he has, but he has a measured approach when it comes to stuff that's like
Because
politically.
but it's not a volatile thing that's going to get views based off of which direction you go with it.
Well, I think it's that
With critical race theory, you're either shitting on it or you're saying how great it is.
yeah, and I think that's because
that's how
of
you're
his
getting your
political
views.
viewpoint. Yeah, but I think his political view on I don't know if it's about.
I mean, it's just
him
like
watching
it's just like
views
the White
or-
House. The White House makes comments about transgender stuff, but they don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Biden said, like, you know, there's a boy and you know, 8 years old and he thinks, no, I want to be a girl. Like, and it's remember, like he said, like, you know, chooses, and I'm like, use some poor vocabulary because
Yeah.
being trans is not something that you
choose. Yeah.
But he's like trying to be pro-trans, but doesn't actually know what like.
Yeah.
And then the White House issued a statement like a couple days ago
Yeah, saying
about
like,
the best thing for
retracting
children is sexual reassignment surgery and hormone blockers. I'm like, I don't think anybody who's a doctor in that field says you should remove the
Bring your
genitals.
7-year-old in for an operation in hormone treatment. Yeah.
Some do the hormone treatment, but like as a rule of thumb, most doctors are not recommending
Yeah.
sexual reassignment at the age of 4.
I don't even think most of them recommend hormone treatment at that young of an age, to be honest.
Most don't, but I was trying to
Yeah.
be fair because that is something that
And
happens.
some people, yeah. No, yeah, that's
But for them to say like, that's the go-to. It's like, so we're just gonna make sure none of our kids have the ability to orgasm. It's like,
Yeah.
That seems pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's some decisions
As like
that
the
I made
best
that-
course of action.
Right.
Not like this is an option.
Yeah, like there's some decisions.
It's not like, oh, trans kids should have these options. It was like the
this is
statement was
definitely
this is-
what we must pursue.
This is what you should be doing.
Yeah, because I could think back to when I was 8 years old, and I had some thoughts and choices that I probably don't agree with right now, but yeah, we'll just trust their opinions. Yeah, that's the whole thing. But I think with John Oliver, I don't know if he was I mean, I'm sure he's trying to do things to be for views and stuff like that. But I think I tend to believe that he believes everything that he's saying, and so John Oliver. So I think that the only way that I could explain.
It depends on what that means.
Well, I think that his stance on the charter schools was accurate because he's trying to point out the people who are taking advantage of the system, and I think that his view
he has a point of view, and then he searches out information
that
helps,
reinforces it and to put out the show. And so I think the same thing with critical race theory. I think with charter schools, it's just that because it's so politically acceptable across the aisle, then he takes more of a nuanced, middle of the road approach and now analyzing things more appropriately, as opposed to critical race theory where he aligns with the left side of the spectrum and he denies everything on the right side of the spectrum. So now he's looking for things that the confirmation bias that reinforces thoughts. So it's not that he's purposely, because I was saying mean shit, but it's not like he's purposely trying to misrepresent what the facts are. He's trying to get out the best message that he knows how, and it's not. He's already doing a lot where it's like, okay, first he's talking about political issues, and he's trying to make it funny. But on top of that, then he's trying to. I'm criticizing him for not being accurate. So it's like, that's not fair. But I'm not mad at him or it would be mean for me to say that he's purposely doing this and he's evil piece of shit.
Well, no, I don't think it's malicious at all.
Yeah, but I think that's the way when I started talking about it, how it sounded like me when we were talking about that, reviewing his coverage of CRT. But the way I look at it, I think he just unaware of the individual circumstances that happened, or the arrest that happened in Ashburn, and why that. I mean, there was just a meeting overall about on the school board. I don't think he's aware of that. I think he has this stance on critical race theory, and he was looking for information that reinforced the points that he was trying to make and make an entertaining show. So, but I think all that being said, and maybe it is because it's like a 30-minute show once a week, but it's like Jon Stewart's show is different from Oliver's because he's not doing that. It's more like, it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit more fleshed out. He's recording him sitting in the room, talking back and forth with his writers. He's sitting down like hour-long interview with a senator. He has a panel discussion, and then like he has a little refined thing where he's talking about it, but and it's only like 16 minutes long where he's talking about it. I guess I'll compare that thing where it's like, because he does this thing show once a week. It's a 16-minute bit. He's hammering
got time
into
to do the
race thing.
research.
Yeah, but my argument is that Oliver does too. Stewart's thing is a little different, like in the format, because he has all these other things that you can fully flesh out. But if I just analyze the Stewart's opening segment, the 16 minutes where he's talking about race, versus Oliver's 16 or probably 20-minute segment that he's talking about critical race theory, Stewart is a little bit more middle of the road, a little bit more of a nuanced approach. But so I think Stewart just does it better than Oliver when it comes to like being politically honest, and not because.
Sorry, I've been ignoring you. Well, I mean, like not.
No, I understand. You're looking something up.
Elon Musk has just had to put in his bid offer to buy Twitter for $43 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, you saw that?
No, but he was moving in that direction because like I won't jump into the. Well, let me finish this point first. But I'm just saying, Stewart, because I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my train of thought, not lose it like I'm an angry black man.
Stewart.
Yeah, Jon Stewart. I'm an angry black man. I'm black and I'm sorry. But Jon Stewart is he's a little bit more middle of the road when it comes to analyzing these things. He's better at it than Oliver is, for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I like Stewart's viewpoint better. But it still comes with different political bias, and that's what we'll jump into. But real fast, Elon Musk. I mean, because first he was he made that. He wrote that tweet and he's like, what do you guys think about me buying or freedom on Twitter? I forgot what the tweet he had, but he had people vote on it.
He bought a number of shares.
Yeah,
to be like the main shareholder, like 9% or something like that.
Yeah, the biggest shareholder. But then he stopped specifically because like if he reached 10%, then it would have been a little different. Then it would like force their hand, like he had to be on the board or something like that. I forget. There's a rule with the 10%.
And then he rejected his board seat.
So the fact that he rejected his board seat, but he's been dancing around this idea of, Twitter needs to change and free speech and something like that. I already knew that. He's trying to take over. He's about to buy this company, because he set it up. If he was on the board, then the Twitter came up and they said we're in talks and we're in negotiations and trying to do this thing. This will be the most advantageous for us in the company for him to be on the board, because then if he's on the board, he can't do this. He can't buy Twitter. He has to do what's in the best interest of the company, and so like a hostile takeover is kind of out of the question. So I mean, the fact that he chose, he decided not to do it, like when in the middle of the negotiations, I was like, oh shit, he's getting ready to buy it. I already knew this was gonna happen.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. So.
And there could be unemployed blue-haired people. As they quit their job because they don't want to work for a billionaire fascist.
Yeah, and it's related to this whole Jon Stewart and John Oliver thing, where it's like they're aligned politically on one thing, so they think that they're being fair, they think they're being honest and have a solid analysis, but their bias is completely shutting out. Completely. I just repeated myself 3 times. Completely shutting out the completely. but shutting out another side of conversation. So yeah. But yeah, again, so Stewart's better at it than Oliver is. So I I was entertained by what he was saying. I thought it was his show was. I mean, I think he's funnier, also. But so I'm a little biased there. But
He's not insufferable.
yeah, because I think he has friends where he has an upbringing where he's like he's more middle of the road.
He's from New York.
Yeah. But that's what. No.
Isn't he?
Yeah. Like he's New York, New Jersey. But that's my
He grew up.
idea.
He grew up doing the whole Adam Sandler group and everything like
Yeah.
that.
So.
Adam Sandler's like not political at all.
Yeah. He doesn't play like
Probably
that.
a Republican.
Yeah, I think so. But
That's what we just assume. Like
yeah.
if you're famous and we don't know your opinion, conservative.
I think he said something at one point, and then everyone was like, "Ooh," and I was like, "Oh yeah."
Oh, he's friends with Terry Crews.
Yeah. There you go. That another racist. Jesus Christ. But the simplified analysis people do, man. But yeah, but that's my pushback, because when they were in the writers' room and we talked about this, like that one guy, the bigger black guy with glasses, and he was talking about things as like black people as if they're monolithic community, and it's just like, how can you say this if you're not, like you live in New York? I'm just like, because I look at Jon Stewart, it's like, oh, he's from this place, like he's exposed, like
what did you say?
The one black person that we talked about it last time, last episode. But let me see if I still have it written down. The other black guy, the kind of bigger black guy with the glasses, and he was saying how not the country was this country wasn't built for black people. That's what he said.
Oh, you're talking about the writers' room.
Yeah. So like, because I'm looking at that guy, and I don't know anything about him, but like. I'm assuming that at least currently he's in New Jersey or New York.
Anything about him.
But I've assumed that he's in New York or New Jersey currently. So like it's hard for me to understand how you could be. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to understand how somebody could be exposed to so many different walks of life and hold that opinion. Or say some.
Because they're only talking with other black people that either casually agree or think the way he does.
Yeah.
Just like if somebody came up to you and like if something was happening in the news and some dude was like, "Man, fuck the police" or something like that.
Yeah.
You probably laugh and be like, "Yeah," because like it's such a throwaway comment that there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to be like, "Well, actually, there's no reason for you to do that," unless they went in on some particular thing and you were like, "That doesn't make any sense."
Right.
But a throwaway comment, you're gonna be, as a black man, gonna be like, "No, I 100% get it."
Yeah, I get how you
exactly.
feel.
So everybody that he's talking to, that he's interacting with, it's either like that or it's we have the same ideology. Any black person who then has a different standpoint, he then gets to toss away and be like, "Oh, they're just one of those Uncle Tom motherfuckers."
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. He's never gonna build unless like something like happens in his life where he has this epiphany moment. He's just gonna keep going through the same path.
Yeah.
And then you're not even doing like it's not even a reinforcement. You're just comfortably rejecting everybody that doesn't have the same opinion as you because they're just on this loser team.
It's just it's impressive that that people can. Well, it's just not my lifestyle. I'm too poor for all that. I'm too poor, so I'm exposed to all different kind of people. So I guess if I was richer and more ideologically inclined, as opposed to rationally inclined, then I'll feel that way.
Maybe you should do whiteface for a day and see how we really talk about you guys.
Like I like the whole when I look at people who are like believe that strongly in an ideology, it's either one or two things. Either it's like which boils down to one thing for real. Like I think it's like either like you're just grown up understanding politically this side's right and this side's wrong, or you just don't know what the fuck's going on, but you know something's wrong, so you're trying to grasp onto an idea as opposed to combing through the details and trying to understand what we can actually do to move forward. So instead, you get so wrapped up into that thought process that you're just like, oh, well, instead of coming through, that shit's too hard, that shit's too complicated, this is too difficult. So you're just hardline on an ideology, and anything that contradicts this ideology is the spawn of Satan. And I think
Indubitably.
Yeah. I want to start with that part because I think even Jon Stewart falls into that trap at some point, at this point. Because I think if you talk to him about the things in general.
Are we talking about the one where they're debating
the panel with the 3 white people on there?
Why do they have all these white people talking about black issues? I just realized that they're all white.
Well, like it was because of his first segment, or the opening part of the segment. He said that, oh, black people have been talking for a while. Like white people just need to listen. Like the throwaway comment that is like, oh, white people have to listen. Like he said, like there are white people that have to listen, but some black people shouldn't be talking. You know, so he has this thing where we panel 3 white people because he's just like, okay, white people, how do we listen to what's going on? And
I forgot that it started off like.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just
Stupid.
Yeah, like I'll dive into because I wanna start with this one first because
who are we listening to?
Yeah.
Are we listening to like Cornel West, Thomas Sowell, and like I was trying to pull off another one out of my ass.
No, I feel you.
John McWhorter is too like particular where people wouldn't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But like Thomas Sowell and Cornel West, like they're gonna sit down and then like Lex Friedman is gonna interview them.
Yeah,
They're just gonna they're gonna get all these ideas out, and it's gonna be 3.5 hours as they break down the culture and the psychological barriers that affect the black community. That's not who we're listening. Like, we're just gonna blanketly listen to black people. What if that person's an idiot?
Right, and that's what. And
it's just some moron who just thinks white people hate them.
Yeah. That's the problem.
I can't get anywhere in my life. Meanwhile, they have like a 6-figure career.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
you don't know
all
what
the
it's like
oppression
to be
that I
me.
have to face. Yeah, you don't know all the privilege that you possess. It's like, all right, bro. All right. Like, I mean, there's
I'm an alcoholic with depression.
Yeah, there's good elements like in what they're talking about. Like there's points that he mentioned that is like, okay, this is a valid thing that should be discussed, but there's some like crucial flaws like that. Like it depends on who we're talking to. You just can't blanket statement list to everybody
because it's like crazy black women there are out there.
Yeah, there's crazy people in general.
Like because like when you talk about like the whole dating podcast and everything like that, like, there are some wild black women out there that don't know what they don't.
Black men ain't shit. Fuck them. Whoa.
Well, at the same time, they only want to date black men.
Yeah. So it's just there's so much there.
So like,
man.
well, like, what do you bring to the table? Well, first of all, men ain't shit, and then
that
wasn't even the question.
Yeah. No, I remember
that actually happened.
I remember watching this one thing. It was like this girl was like, oh yeah, I'm independent. I don't need a man. Men ain't shit. And like this black guy was just like, I thought we were on a date. And then she's like, yeah, but I just want to let you know up front. And he's like, but why am I here then? And
what was this?
It was some. It was like.
Was it a joke?
Yeah, I think it was a skit. It was a skit. Yeah, and
I was saying like you wouldn't want
to. Like I think the guy was recording it, but like because he knew what kind of person this was, but this is what this person actually felt. And she's like, no, man, ain't. She's like, I just want to tell you up front. And then he's just like, well, why am I here? And she's like, I don't know. You tell me. And he's like, okay, and walks away. I'm gonna try to find it because it was hilarious. I was laughing.
But basically, like you wouldn't want to be listening to those.
Yeah, it's like and
they can't figure anything out. So why would I listen to them try and talk about an important issue?
Yeah,
they don't have any common sense. They don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, there's just so much to comb through.
So I have to sit down and just listen to it. No.
Right, because you got to discern. Yeah, you got to discern what's right and what's not. And some people.
That's some Billy Madison shit. We're all dumber for listening. May God have mercy on your soul. A simple wrong.
Nothing that you said.
You could have just told me it was the wrong.
That was the best. Hey, yo, that guy is the best actor in my opinion. At that moment, he was just like straight face the whole time. He's like, nothing in your incoherent rambling even came
And he
close.
said it in a bewildered way.
Yeah.
Nothing in that incoherent,
Rambling even comes close to
like a conscious
of a rational thought.
or point.
Yeah.
I offer you no point.
Yeah,
And may God have mercy on
we're all dumber for I've listened to it. Oh my god. I can watch that over and over again and just that was so great. But I mean there's other stuff in the writer's room that like we haven't touched on yet that I want to dive into, and I kind of set it up where it's like and his monologue, the piece where he's like this 16-minute spiel. But and there's some stuff.
And then he mentioned the 1619.
Yeah. But that's like, well, there's like a lazy analysis and parts of elements of it, and then there's like, okay, there's a group of valid points that like need discussion, but like there's a way, I don't know if it was properly discussed. But I want to start with the panel discussion because this was supposedly the place where we could have that discussion. And then after that, he goes to talk to Cory Booker. But like, but I want to start with the panel discussion just because it was the worst of it. It gets progressively better. I was trying to, after last week, I just felt like shit. I had to go watch this movie.
We just talked. We only talked about the.
We talked about
writers.
a couple of the writers thing, yeah.
We didn't, because I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah.
And then I watched it. Jesus Christ! Excuse me. That was a lifesaver, bird.
I could have died right there. But yeah, let me. I just wrote some notes on it because I'm bad at remembering stuff. But yeah, but they're on the discussion, and there's like you're familiar with it. There's a lady there who was impressive, and then there's Chad or
you could go back to the other one that had the larger print. I can't read. I'm gonna need my glasses. And
I just wrote like keywords so I can remember what was said. But so there was Charles, and then there was the other guy, Andrew, who's an editor for somewhere. I'm not familiar with any of these people.
I know who he is.
Okay.
He's Canadian?
I don't know. I think
they said he's Canadian.
Maybe. I thought
he's not. He's not American.
He said he was. I know he was British, because he said he was an immigrant. So
maybe
he's
English.
From maybe
it's England or Canada.
Yeah, okay.
Because you could tell he had some odd accent, but
yeah.
I couldn't pinpoint what the hell it was.
Yeah, where they invented English, weirdo.
An English.
No, yeah, that's not how you say that word. Stupid. It's like. But they start off with the guy was saying Chad, I think I'm sorry, Chip, Charles, whatever. He was saying how it's a meritocracy. White people think that America's a meritocracy now, and they're like oblivious to racism, or that there are systems in place that are racist, and it's like
the first dude.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like which is ideally like if you want to live in a race-free society, or not race-free society, but like a society that doesn't make decisions based on not like of the content of character, not color of skin, which is what they say that that's a lazy simplification of everything. But it's like the
that's
ideal.
all that is though.
Yeah.
It's more so a lack of understanding or knowledge of potential historical disadvantages that then lead into potential poor life decisions. And
right.
Then creates this turmoil of a continuous rotating generation of poverty. And,
right.
And then not getting that, and then like, because they make it seem like it's like malicious or something like that.
Right.
Like it's not. It's just like, well, we work hard. And why don't you work hard?
Yeah. Which is like it's good.
It's like the bootstrap comic.
Right. And
it's funny because people say that's racist. It's like one of the least racist things you could say.
Yeah, I just think that
it's
people
like
don't
I work
understand.
hard, and you should work hard. And if you're not succeeding, well, then you should reevaluate and then work harder.
Yeah. I think it's like people are afraid, like the wolves in sheep's clothing thing. They're afraid of racist people hiding behind that comment to just say that, oh, those lazy niggas need to do some work.
Well, they do.
Yeah, that happens. I'm not devaluing that happens. What I'm saying is that it's good that we like even.
But it's
even,
having
even
the same
most
standard for whites as you do blacks.
Well,
That's what I mean. It's like
yeah,
the least racist.
which is right. It's across the board.
We're
Because
saying
this
white
is,
people
this
should
is
work
the
hard,
system.
and you're black, well, just
Right.
work hard. If you
Right.
need to work harder, you should work harder.
Yeah, not to deny that there are racists who hide behind comments like that, but it's just to say this is the metric that you want everybody to, this is the world that you want to live in. You want to live in a place where even if you don't believe that there's equity, that there's people who perceive it as equitable. And then that way we could progress forward from like, okay, let's move forward. Okay, this group of people haven't done this. All right, well, let's give them support or give them infrastructure or build the infrastructure so they can climb the ladder better. And I think what they're really upset about is that looking at things in this way, they're afraid or don't like the fact that it undermines the historical context of why the African American community, the black community, ended up where it is right now. And I think there's a better way to go about it. Instead of labeling that meritocracy like we've discussed or bootstraps with racist, raised eyebrow, you could just look at it like, okay, it's good that we look at it that way. But I think it's on top of that, it's also important to understand that this is like the historical context that comes with it. And unfortunately, a group of black Americans ended up economically ravaged, and they because due to lack of opportunities and targeting by different metrics and different systems. And now we're dealing with the repercussions of those systems. So now we owe it to black Americans to do something more and to focus on a different infrastructure, to build a different infrastructure that would help them achieve. But we don't have to focus on things strictly from the measure of race, because there's people in white Appalachia that's still in the same situation for similar reasons. I don't say the same reason. They weren't targeted, but they were economically depressed. They bad culture. They don't have good family structure. So it's like, oh, they don't have the means to get from A to B or B to C. Mm-hmm. So let's provide a structure that helps everybody, and that way, like within the African American community. And I'm showcasing my bias because I'm more of a libertarian. So I'm just like, all right, well, government could stay out of it, and black people could come together as a community to do better for ourselves. Because I think that's the way forward. Like on top, like yeah, we need this additional help, but like just help everybody in general, who's like economically depressed, and then black people can bond together if they want to do better for black people, which is what everyone professes to do, and then we bond together and build different systems within our community to excel to even greater heights. Because every group that's come here that's widely successful, that's exactly what they've done. The Chinese have done it. The Italians have done it. But like the Jews have done it. Like that's how it works. It's a method that works, and we know that works. So I think that's what needs to happen. We shouldn't look at the government to fix all the problems, but I think that's what their problem with that viewpoint is. But so already it's just started off from the doom state. They didn't talk about it from that measure. So I was like, oh, maybe they'll touch on this stuff. It's like, nah, they're just well, let's continue.
I was gonna say, the moment you saw a fat white woman on there, you should have known that nothing good was gonna come out of that.
Yeah, she had the best comments.
I'll say a large white woman.
Yeah. How dare you fat shame?
No, I don't want people to think like I want to be clear on what she looks like. Some people's view of what fat is different.
Oh, that's true. They have 1,000-pound life now.
I was more saying there's some people think like,
like
you're like chunky and it's like, oh, look how gross and fat they are. I'm like, oh, they're like 20 pounds overweight. Like,
yeah. Relax, bro. 1,000-pound life. But yeah, she was saying upholding something about upholding systems that like
and then they couldn't
she's
identify
racist.
the systems.
Yeah, like she said, she's racist because she's identifying, she's upholding these racist systems, and we all need to acknowledge it. And I think that's coming from
And I was like, what systems?
yeah.
And they couldn't answer it. And then they were talking about redlining, and it was like, yes, okay, that's a system. It's like, oh, I just named a system. And then, like, it became hectic, and it was like,
Yeah.
but, like, redlining became illegal, like, in the 80s.
Right, like instead of
Right? I
saying
think so.
yeah,
It's
like
So it's like, it's been, like, 40 years since it was...
yeah, I think
Since people were, like, legally doing
redlining,
it.
yeah, like
It's illegal now. So,
Right.
like, if they're doing it, they're breaking the law.
right, and seeing that's
It's like
why-
saying, like, it's like, people do get murdered. It's like, yeah, that's a crime.
yeah, like we don't accept it.
it's not. If you get caught doing it, you're
Yeah.
going to jail. Like,
Right, but it's like she's not
it's
even.
like,
saying-
redlining. It's
But she's
just
not-
a law you're breaking.
You know, and it would have been if she just said the systems that exist. You know, that's one thing. But she says that she upholds those systems. So it's like,
Which is, like,
that's so
weird.
much worse. It's like,
It's like,
wait, so you think? I think that she just doesn't know. I mean,
No, it's this ploy to make people think that you give a shit about
yeah,
them.
because it's like there are like they could have talked about if they really cared and they really understood it. They could have talked about the de facto laws, not the actual laws in the books that are like the systems. But they could talk about the de facto laws that happen due to general biases that people have towards one community. Or like
That would be the smart approach.
yeah. Cause
Instead, they're just. I don't even
Yeah.
know. Like, I literally could not think of one system that is in place.
Yeah,
that
like-
is designed to hold black people back.
there's not a law or system. Like you could talk about the de facto, like the bias that exists. Like when people get their houses appraised, like African Americans tend to have, or I'm sure Black Americans tend to have lower appraisals than other people. And then it's like there's even this lady who, or a bunch of cases where like they'll pretend to be. They'll have a white friend and they'll have them come over and they'll pretend to be married to them, and then they'll appraise the same house and haven't done anything to it, and the appraisal value just shoots up.
I'll see
So it's
that.
like, but that's a bias that's baked in. It's not a rule on the books. It's that, so I don't think she's upholding the system of that bias in order to appraise one person as less than and then the other person because of the color of their skin. So she's not upholding that system. I think she just honestly, like you said, she doesn't know enough about it. So she's just pretending
no, she
to
really
care.
does but I'm saying, like,
I don't
you're
think
just-
she knows
no,
enough
it's
about
just,
it.
it's a virtue signal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what.
That's
like,
why when white people say it's like, we're all racist. And
Yeah.
we have to learn and like da 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 da.
Yeah.
It's like no white person that talks to black people thinks that they need to acknowledge anything.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hey, what's going on? You see the Charlotte game last night? Like, we're not like, do I have an explicit bias talking to this black guy about basketball?
Well, it's probably like
Like, you're not thinking that because you're like, I have a relationship with you. Why would
Right.
I be thinking I'm ahead of you because of my skin color?
She probably
It's
has.
weird.
She probably talks to black people, but she talks about black people about this. So it's like in that circle, but she doesn't talk to like normal. I think the problem is money. I think if everyone was poor, then everybody would be like, oh, okay. I don't. But I think if you're in a place where like, oh, you're just economically advantaged and like, oh my gosh, and you're thinking about these things and you want to postulate like you care. So you're talking to your black friends about how you care and how you could express yourself this way, identify your privilege, and showcase that you're upholding these systems and you acknowledge your racism. So that way,
That's why they're always doing all this weird shit.
yeah. Because like, and
They're
that's my
like
argument.
8-year-old pansexuals. What the fuck is that?
Yeah. I just love
I
everybody.
heard something.
Pansexual.
I heard something fucked up. It was Rogan said like the pansexual thing. Yeah, people like that. People that like identify as pansexual, they're just weird. And he said, "You have a problem. You need a lot of attention."
Yeah. I like
Because then he was saying like what happened to bi? Like,
Yeah.
it's a pan. It's like
Bi wasn't
you're
enough.
just-
They're like, no, I want everybody.
You're just trying to be extra. Like,
That's what I like. Dave Chappelle's take when he's like the guy in the car analogies was like, I don't know what I am, but I know I really want to get in this car.
was that pansexual?
No, I think he was talking about
Non-binary?
Yeah, I think so. But no, he was talking about the Q, the LGBTQ.
Oh, queer.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know don't know what I am.
Yeah.
I really want to get in this car.
But that's why I think my argument is that I don't think she knows enough about the de facto laws or the unconscious bias and the effects of the residuals and how to get from B to C. I think she's so focused.
No, she does know.
I think
these people do know.
I think they're so. Well, if they do know, then I think they're so hyper focused on making a.
You're missing this.
How do you think it is? What am I?
It's an ideology you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what do you do in an ideology?
You marry yourself to
More importantly, you believe.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what the point is, as long as it's part of the ideology, you believe it. So it really doesn't matter what the fuck she knows.
I see what you're saying.
Because tomorrow,
it's not
sectionality.
Yeah. Okay.
That'll be a white supremacy.
I see what you're saying.
It's constantly changing, so
it's not
it doesn't.
That she's not exposed to it. It's
it
more
doesn't
so.
There's no thought that you should give to what she thinks of intellectually, because it doesn't matter.
Damn. So, and I think we kind of talked about this.
Because the goalposts are always moving,
yeah.
Back, forward, everywhere. Because there's no rules to the game.
So I think I was trying to articulate this at one point when we were talking about Daryl Davis. Because when he's talking to
because they have a goal, they have rules.
They're setting this thing, and then they realize the world is bigger.
I'm racist because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Well, I have a college degree. How do you explain that? And then they can say affirmative action. But then he's like, well, I read all the time, and just the way he talks, you're like, well, this guy's not a moron. And then just the more you talk, it's like, you know what? My game really doesn't make much sense.
Right.
Because they have rules to their game.
Right.
So the more that
he's boxed into this one, think the
they're
world
not
look like this.
In.
No, well, they're flagposts. They think this way, and then when he busts that open, there's the world outside of this. Black people will look at
that. The white supremacist saying is checkers is a superior game than chess, but they don't know how to play chess. So all Daryl Davis has to do is be like, well, this piece can do this, and this piece can do that. And then you're like, as you're exposed, you're like, oh, there's a lot of methods and different reactions. It's strategy, and you're trying to set moves up. It's like, checkers is pretty simple. I guess that's why there's the phrase, playing, this person's playing checkers while this person's playing checkers.
Right.
And then they just, well, my game sucks.
Right.
But if you have a game that has no rules...
Yeah, then it's like, it doesn't matter.
And the rules change predicated on what the person is saying and what the skin color of the person is saying and then what the gender they're analyzing a fucking idiot.
Yeah, no, I follow. But I'm saying, it's so much worse because, and what I mean by boxed in is, they think that this is the way that everything works. They think this is the way the world is.
It's not even that.
And
it's...
No. Well,
because
not
that's
that.
giving it too much credit.
I'm talking about someone in the KKK looks at things this way, so they're boxed into this thought. So once they understand or exposed to oh wow, someone's over there. Oh, someone's doing this. And they're just like, oh shit, and they're looking at their little box and they're like, nah, they're exposed to oh things are bigger than that.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, oh this is wrong. This is just a piece of it, and I understand what this is because that's where I come from, but. It's but it's fundamentally wrong because of all this other stuff that's going on. Whereas what you're the example of this lady who's she knows about it, but it's but it doesn't matter.
It's make-believe fairy time. I literally heard a teacher that was getting interviewed talking about them being trans. And I can't remember if they said they told their kids that, they told their students this, or it really doesn't matter. The point that was being made was that when you're born, the doctors guess your gender.
Wow.
And that 99% of the time, or they guess who you are, and then 99% of the time they're right, but every now and then they're wrong, which doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because the doctor's right. And then you're just this random anomaly.
Yeah.
You can't say that the 99.9% chance, or the way that everyone else is.
Yeah.
That's the default. No, it's no, that's the rule of law.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just these
odd exceptions.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a problem with philosophy in general. And
But
like,
that's the
like,
type of person that she is.
Yeah, I
So
see
you
that.
can't
Like,
have
I wasn't
logic.
able to.
You can't see, like, we could have these conversations 20 years ago because
Right.
Democrats and Republicans were playing by these rules of reality.
Yeah, yeah. I
Well, it's
see
like,
what
well,
you're
redlining's bad. Redlining was an example of systematic oppression. It's like,
Right.
well, you're right, but we've stopped that. But there's, yes, but you have to understand the residual effects of that have kept black people from gaining property. And then it's like, well, you kind of got me there, so now I need to backtrack and then go about that.
Right,
Whereas like
right.
now they're just saying like, well, there's every system is in place, and then it's like, well, what's the system? Dieting is a system, and you're like, dieting? It's like,
Yeah.
well, black people have high blood pressure. Yeah, because they eat like shit. I don't know what you do.
Yeah,
So many fried foods and sugar.
yeah. So
So they all have diabetes.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
But then, like, you're blaming that on the system. It's like, yeah, but those are like, they
Yeah.
can drink water. They don't have to drink Kool-Aid and
Yeah.
soda and all these other sugar drinks. Like,
Yeah.
you could just drink water and natural juice.
Yeah, which is 100% different. This is why I don't like looking at.
But that's
like,
my point, is
like,
that they'll say,
Yeah,
you can't have a conversation.
Yeah. It's frustrating because they'll look at black people as a monolith. Meanwhile, like, I know a 96-year-old farmer in Cameroon who's like, he's like, oh yeah, next year I'm thinking about doing this. I'm like, are you? Like,
You're almost 100.
you kind of close. Yeah. I don't think you should be talking about life this way. Like, you're just like, I'll get to that next year. It's like, holy shit, bro. But that's how. But he's never drank. Like, I mean, like up till recently, very recently, there's just like not a lot of, not even like hormone added meat in in a lot of those places. Like, it's just, this is natural chicken. There's like, everything's natural. There's like no processed foods. Like, it's not like you go to the market. It's like oh, the farmer just came in yesterday. Like, it's a different world. So it's like, it's a group all black people as like a monolith thing. It's like.
But then it's not even that. It's
But going back to the other point, well, my bad. About like the having a conversation with somebody who knows about this, but is so latched onto their ideology that being exposed to the knowledge that you have doesn't play a factor in how strongly they hold on to their ideology. That is scary. That like it is.
Well, yeah,
it's
it's
hard
all
to.
It's all indoctrination.
Yeah. It's I can't imagine, like, it's
just
that's
like
why
what,
I'm curious.
Just like
I
what
want
the patriarchy has become.
Yeah, like you had to explain it to me because I really didn't understand. I was like,
What?
the patriarchy? No, like not now, but like before we were having a discussion at some point, and you were saying about the patriarchy, and I was like, what? What does that mean? And you're like, don't you know this? And like break down what patriarchy or how they looked at it, and I was like, but that doesn't make sense. And you're just like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like that. Like we're talking about the patriarchy like it's 1850.
Yeah. And that's the problem. I think they're stuck.
And their
looking
whole
at the
mindset
past.
is like, well, women should just be in charge.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but how does that like?
Yeah, it doesn't. We're still
Are
don't
you
have.
even capable of doing that? Like,
We still. Well, it's like even whether you're a man and you're in charge, or whether you're a woman who's in charge, like we still don't have enough
it's
food.
just stupid to deny that men don't have leadership capabilities.
Yeah. And just they're just ignoring. They're latching onto the ideology.
It's like, okay, women. Where's your Elon Musk and your Jeff Bezos?
I mean, like I'm sure that's out there. I'm sure women.
It's
have
more
done
so
that,
as like
but I'm
an
just saying-
angry response to
I feel
their aggression. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, if you're so great, where is anybody that is remotely even close to being these people?
Yeah, but I think when that happens, they get so lashed into like, oh, see, you're sexist. I can't believe
Yeah,
you
that's
said-"
because you guys suck.
Yeah, but I think that then that just solidifies their ideology, as opposed to being like,
But I'm saying that's
all
where
right,
it
well,
comes
like,
from.
well, we need women in charge. It's like, all right, cool, women's in charge now. There's still no water in California. Like, how are we gonna fix that? Oh, we're gonna do this policy. How is that different than what the last person did? Oh, it's not. Okay, well then does it matter if a woman's in charge or not? No. I think that has to that dialogue needs to happen in order to start breaking down that ideology. I think the way that we talk about it, the way that you talk to someone from KKK, like boxing to playing checkers. Oh no, explain the game of chess. They'll break out of that. But like to talk to somebody who holds onto the ideology, I think you have to talk to them in a different kind of way. You just have to like.
I have to just keep making them look stupid.
Which it feels, and that's kind of why I didn't like. At first I was like, oh yeah, we should bring someone on and talk about and flesh these things out. But then it's like, it's just gonna come across as wrong because it's just like
if somebody doesn't have any ground that they're standing on, they just have a statement like with like dating, and someone was like, oh, there's such a double standard, and then you're like, well, yeah, but that's kind of because of how like the sexual market works.
Yeah.
And they're usually going to be like, well, what are you talking about? Or they're going to be like, what does that mean? Like, you know.
Yeah.
But there's still a question about it, and then you can be like, oh, well, like a high, like, I don't want to say high value man because it's so fucking overused.
Yeah.
But like a guy that like is very desirable.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he very desirable? Because a lot of women want to be with him.
Yeah.
Right. So it really doesn't matter if he's slept with a lot of women. Like he's still an attractive, successful.
Yeah.
Like friendly. Like he's cool to hang out with. Like there's all these great things about his personality and how he looks and all this other stuff. So like it really doesn't matter because you still that's like a prize to you.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman, it's like like Giselle isn't viewed as like this amazing woman because she's beautiful and she fucked 7,000 guys.
Yeah.
It's because she's a beautiful woman who got Tom Brady, who's like a GQ model / the greatest quarterback to ever live.
Yeah.
And their net worth is like billions.
Right.
And they live on a compound. Like she won because of that.
Right.
Whereas if Tom Brady was single, he would still.
Right. And see,
and then they're listening to it like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna get angry because it's such a stupid. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, but I think when they do get angry, then it's like you kind of flesh it out, and then they come across as stupid, which is like it's not intentional, but that's just what happens because at the end of the day, it's a stupid mindset. Because they'll be like, no, but that's a double standard. How come we don't? How come like no one cares about how many people Tom Brady slept with? That should be a factor. And I was like, all right. But it's not. And it's like, and you might care about it, like you know what I care about, but the next 10 women behind you don't. So like, if you ask him like, oh, how many women have you slept with, and it's double the amount of women that the other, the double the amount of people that the other person slept with, that the female, his counterpart slept with, then you're just like, oh, well, that's so much worse. But that's not going to change anybody's mind.
No,
like,
but then
the
you
10
just
people
explain.
behind
It's
you.
like but like women get people get damaged from relationships and like bad partners.
Yeah.
So if you're a woman and you just keep having bad partners, like.
Well, I mean, the thing, I think it's different. Like, a man who's been I think it's even the opposite when it comes to, like, desirability. Like, I think men...
No, I'm just saying if a woman has, like 50 poor sexual partners, she's, like, 22.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
Her life is fucking ruined.
No, I hear what you're saying, but I'm saying...
Because she's never going to come around until she goes to therapy. Like, she's completely fucked her entire life.
Well, I'm saying when it comes to opposites, I think that men who have experience are more desirable to women because women are like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing, as opposed to women who have more experience with guys. It's like, no, that's okay. Like I don't need you to know how to. Oh, you did this 50 times before.
You don't give a shit if it's a learning curve or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's shit if there's a learning curve or not. I don't know if that's too far away.
Well, yeah, it's just it's a.
I don't know why I walked over there to put that.
Yeah, I think that's that difference plays a factor.
Well, let's not get too far off. I was just using that like.
Yeah. I was trying to find
someone who has
someone
who has like a very like just doesn't really give a shit but has an opinion. You can.
Yeah.
You just say like a couple things and it just. Oh, well, I guess that makes sense. Because nobody cares.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody there, like, you just make them look as dumb as fucking possible.
Yeah. So I think
over and over and over again.
Yeah, and
or until their life gets ruined.
Well, I think it's gonna come
Like
out
with that
like as
doctor
we go.
that said she jabbed somebody who made fun of her pronoun.
Oh boy. But I haven't heard about that. I think I try to stay away from stories like that. Yeah.
Well, no, she wanted to be in solidarity with the gender community.
Yeah.
So you can wear like a pronoun badge or a badge that has whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And she was, I think, in some form of training, because I think she might have finished medical school or she was in medical school.
Okay.
No, she was in medical school.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not. I don't know. I'd have to read the story.
Right.
It doesn't matter. So she had like the she/her pronoun.
Yeah.
And some like, I think it was like an older white guy, but I don't know what old is. It could have been like 50 or something like that. But he just kind of laughed at it and said, "Well, what else would it be?" Because she's a biological woman.
Yeah.
She's not even in. She's just doing it so everyone else can feel more comfortable, like they're part of it too. Because it's just me making other people feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny though, because it's like, you look like a woman and have tits.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna call you a guy.
I was confused before that badge showed up. Gotcha.
It was one of those things. It's like, what else would you? You look like a woman. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So because of that, she said she missed his vein on purpose while drawing blood, so she could jab him twice, and then she lost her job.
Jesus. Yeah. Fuck that. Like, I mean, like I get like.
Well, she said it in a tweet.
Yeah. Oh wow. That she jabbed him on. Wow. Yeah, no, that's not okay because like you have
That's
to.
That's what I'm saying. Like people like that,
Yeah.
that like when that happens,
to,
and then they lose their job, and then nobody can hire them, and then they've wasted their entire life. Then it's like, well, now you can try and figure it out.
Yeah, because I don't think people understand that like when you go into the medical profession, like you have to swear an oath to like to not cause. Not to cause bodily harm, but like to try to do the best that you can to
no matter what.
The hippo, whatever.
Doesn't matter if
they're drug dealer or they're war criminal. Yeah, like it's just the Hippocratic oath. I think it's called. I could be just not knowing.
Hippocratic.
Is it hippo?
Hippocratic.
Hippopotamus oath. Something like that. It was called the hippopotamus oath. Something like that. Let me look it up because I don't want to.
No, you got it right. Because I was thinking hypocrite.
Yeah, I was thinking of him. Yeah, because I thought about that too.
It's the Hippocratic oath or something like that.
Something like that. Hippopotamus oath. So it's a little different than like.
If somebody is seeking medical attention, you have to do the best of your ability to
preserve
what you
life,
the value of life.
Yeah. It's not like in at the end of Iron Man 2, where he like he made the representative. He called in a favor and made the one-eyed guy Samuel Jackson pin the Fury. And he made Fury get that representative that he was like that was going back and forth with Tony at the beginning to put the pin on him. And so the guy like he put the pin on him, but like he pricked him on purpose. And he's like, "Careful, you're a real prick." It's like it's a little funny. It's like but that's a little different than purposely missing a vein. Like you're under different guidelines. I just watched a bunch of Marvel stuff because
that was a movie.
I was depressed last time.
That was a movie. That wasn't real life.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying like that. I mean, even if that were to happen, like it's he's not under an oath to try to do that, and then he's not blasting it on like this is like something like in between, or like I'm saying like the guy in the movie wasn't doing it. But she was.
Well, he was just doing like a pun.
Yeah, he was just being a pun and like an asshole face to face, like kind of, but not blasting it, showcasing it in order to try to get support and a virtue signal for.
You don't need to use Marvel as that's the example.
I'm trying to make. I feel good about myself now that I'm watching
Marvel. It lightened your mood.
Last week I was like in the middle of the conversation. I don't know if it came across in the video, but in the middle of the conversation I was just like, "Fuck, bro." So, I'm holding on to my ideology. But I think as we progress through this episode, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna end up ripping her apart. I mean, she does it to herself, but
well, she changed it because then she's like, white people
Oh, it gets
Or we need to.
It
What did
gets-
she say? We need to listen.
it gets so much better.
No, I forget. What did she say? She's like, white people need to listen, or we need to have these conversations with each other. And then she, at the end, said that this is why I don't talk to white men.
We'll get to that part. Yeah, we'll get to That's where were we? Oh, so the Andrew guy was talking, and so he was saying he's like I don't agree, and he's like I have a problem with that perspective because, and then he starts getting into it, and then he stops and he's just like, well, like I'm coming from it from a perspective of an immigrant. I immigrated here, and I look at it this way. And then he says, like 86%, or like this is what America stands for. And it's like the land of all this, and like and we stand for these things, and that's why I came here. That's why a lot of people come here. And he said something like 86% of immigrants
are
non-white. And it's like, and which is
all of these people be coming to a country that was just rooted in white supremacy.
Right, and which was kind of his point. But
they glossed over. They didn't even address it.
That's the thing, and the problem is that
they were saying something else.
No, like so it's funny the way that they pivoted it. Like I mean, first of all, like of some of the immigrants that come in, some of them are Caribbean, some of them are from Africa.
India,
so it's like, well, yeah,
China.
I mean, but I'm saying that there's black immigrants also. But
I see what you mean.
But the
like,
way that they pivot,
there's black people that are saying, "My God, I need to get here."
Yeah, exactly.
So they're desperately trying to get here just so they can be.
Right. So that would have been
oppressed.
that would have been an interesting way to take the conversation. It's like, oh well, and then maybe they could have argued that like, oh well, they're not aware of this, or they just don't understand the significance
nobody has
of
any
it.
leg to stand on anymore.
Yeah, because they're not really talking. They're talking about things from an ideological standpoint,
But the
as
racial
opposed to a
issues in this
factual.
country are so fucking unbelievably complicated right now because there's no binary thing happening.
And
I've
it's
said
not a
this-
monolithic group either, so
Well,
it's
no,
like
I'm talking about binary issues. You had
Like
slavery.
suicide
No,
versus-
you had slavery.
Mhm.
Keep it or get rid of it. We decided
Yeah.
to get rid of it.
Yeah, this side of
Well,
that
we
side.
have
Yeah,
segregation and Jim Crow laws.
Right.
Well, this is directly affecting a group of people based off their race. Keep it or get rid of it.
Right.
Well, what are we talking about now? School funding. We're talking about like the private businesses and the loans. There's so many
Yeah.
different factors. Where's the binary fucking issue?
Right.
But they're still approaching it like
It's the
like
old
it's
problem.
slavery.
Yeah. It's like my bad. It's like you're trying to.
Are we for slavery or against slavery? Yeah. What are you talking about?
Right. No, 100%. It's like
It's like half my bosses have been black. What are
Yeah.
you
It's like trying to build a sandcastle. Like, well, first it's like
I've met like regional managers making like 150K that are black. Like, what are you talking?
Right.
What is going on? Because it's not a binary issue.
Right.
That's what I
it's
mean.
More,
Like,
it's more complicated.
It's complicated. There's all these different
I
factors.
see what you're saying. Yeah.
There's so many different choices and things involved, and based off perceptions. Like, black people weren't dealing with perceptions in 1920. It was like, no, I'm
Right.
dealing with segregation.
Yeah.
I can't sit
like
on
I'm sure segregation. I mean,
I can't get on the bus because there's no seats in the front available, and like they don't like me, and I just have to wait till the next bus.
Right.
And now I might be late for work and get fired from a job where I'm getting paid half as much because I'm black and the white boss doesn't like me.
Yeah. Then I end up running to work, and then they call me lazy. I was like, he's dealing
Or they
with.
say I'm gross because I'm sweating too
Yeah,
much.
like he's dealing with how he's perceived, but the more immediate concerns has nothing to do, like, or
He
not
doesn't
that has
care
anything to do
about
with it, but
what the
yeah.
culture thinks
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I would like to drink from that water fountain and not have to eat behind a dumpster
right
to go to
right,
this restaurant.
Right. So it's not that it's not an issue. It's just that it's like.
Whereas now we're dealing with more complicated
Yeah.
issues where you can't act like it's binary.
Right. And I think that's the problem because we're trying to fix the old problems in present day in order to refute.
The same guideline of
Yeah.
how we fixed problems from like the 1800s to present day 2022.
Yeah.
It's like it's like not gonna work. Like
100%.
no one even knows what you're talking about.
Right, like, oh, I used this hammer to hammer in that nail back in the day, so I'm going to use this hammer to build the sandcastle. this is gonna go good. Like,
To build a computer.
Yeah. What could go wrong? Replace the screen with this hammer.
Because it's just so much more complicated, and they're making it seem like they didn't even come up with answers. It was just it's so bad being black.
Yeah, the way that he pivoted, like first he asked him a question, and I think it was like a leading question, so it kind of disingenuous.
Half of the shit was leading because they were just trying to get him.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, like he kind of stops me, like, oh, okay, it's like he's like, so I understand, so like you're trying to make so he's like, so do you think it's hard to talk about this stuff because it's a moral argument, like it's a question. Oh, the ladies talked again. She was talking about how we've done a good job of making racism a bad thing, and so Jon Stewart's like, okay, well, and it goes back to Andrews, and he's like, oh, well, do you think, or Andrew, he's like, do you think that the problem is that because it's a moral argument, like why people get so defensive about talking about it because it's a question of morality, and then he says something, and then Jon Stewart says, oh, well, that's the key thing, like you're an immigrant, and it's like, but black people didn't choose to immigrate here, they were forced to come here, and he's talking about black Americans like through slavery back in the day, but it's just like, but there's the conversation that we just had about the different black people that come to the country currently, it's like it's completely ignored, and instead of talking about
not even that, but that's based off of
historical, the hammer in the nail.
There were black people that were slaves who then weren't slaves anymore, and they're like, you need to read.
Yeah.
And they like had a strong family structure and pushed education.
Yeah.
And then they're the people that are potentially business owners and lawyers and doctors.
Yeah.
So like they understood that they had these difficult
judges, writers. Yeah.
No, but they had these like issues, and they like were aware of it and probably didn't like it, and like we're like teaching the kids, you're gonna have to bite your lip and deal with a bunch of bullshit. But they were like, I'm pushing perseverance.
Yeah, and then
they persevered, and they're like, oh, isn't this great? My son was able to buy me a house,
Well, the thing is,
or something like that. So they're not then turning around and being like, even, my family achieved all these great things in spite of all the racism.
Right.
They're just enjoying the prosperity of their hard work.
Right. And it's like, and that was largely because they couldn't come out and speak out about these things. But the few that were able to, like in those positions, and they were acclaimed and in a free state and had a position where they could speak on that kind of platform, did so. And they did so underneath the principles that America stands for. Like Frederick Douglass, which is why I think it's disgusting when you say things like, or the guy in the writers' room, they're saying like, oh, this country wasn't built for black people. It's like, no, Frederick Douglass was a slave, got out of slavery, escaped with his wife, now in the North, writing for a paper and like talks about all these issues. He has this platform, and he's actively talking against like these supremacist type of things, but under the guidelines of America needing to fulfill its promise to all its people, not just the white people or the white rich landowners. So it's like they argued on that platform, but now we're kind of devolving, like pretending like that didn't happen, or we're trying to pretend like we're fighting the same fight that he was fighting back then in present day, and it's a different animal. Like the hammer's nailed in, like it's not. You're not fighting the same thing. So they're using the same language to fight against the current issues, which is different than the past issues. And it's just it's a gross oversimplification of history and the contributions of great men like Frederick Douglass, where it's like they even argue about making him a founding father.
I'm more piggybacking on what you're saying with the monolith thing. It's like,
yeah.
Not every black person that experienced slavery took it as this like crippling mindset where they just never achieve or do anything of value.
No, I follow. I see what you're
That's
saying.
what I'm saying. Like, they're like, I'm going through it and it sucks.
Yeah.
But the next generation is going to be better.
Yeah.
And then their kids who were instilled with that were like, I want to do the same things like that, because my dad was very strong and I saw him as like a very firm foundation in my life. So I want to be that for my kids. And then like that generation has like college degrees and like owning businesses, buying houses for them. It's like, I bought you this house, Dad. And then they're not looking back and thinking about like all the racism. They're like,
oh, this is good. This is
Yeah, no, I follow.
the fruits of all of our labors. Like, that's what
Yeah.
they're thinking. So then for him to say, like, to keep going back to, like, well, black people, it's like, we're all aware that black people went through slavery. Like, no
Yeah.
one's debating this or saying that it didn't
Right,
happen. But how
right.
do we move forward?
Right,
Continually just referencing that they were enslaved doesn't help them do anything.
Right, and I think what you said was really important, and I think the reason why it's not focused on is because people are so upset at the fact that people in those black people in those positions weren't able to speak out. That they're upset about that, so they're fighting a ghost, fighting something that's ethereal. Like, or they're just like, oh, it's not, we can't grasp it, or like they couldn't do it back then, so now we're speaking up for the people who existed all those years ago who didn't care as much because that was their reality.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they did what you said. They knuckled down and they progressed.
They did actions.
Yeah, and if we looked at history as it was, I was able to look at, wow, you know what? Even though we were brought over here as slaves, and you could even bring up 1619, like, oh, the first one, the first ship came in. It's like even with that, then look at how much black people were able to achieve in America from this point to this point, and it's like, wow, yeah, they had the likes of Frederick Douglass,
You're just
and I'm talking
constantly
about this,
focusing
but
on the most negative aspects of everything
Yeah.
that surrounds black people.
right, and I think that's a simplification of
Like, how many black millionaires are there?
yeah.
I'm assuming there's a lot.
But see, but like
It's not like there's like two.
But the way that like they'll excuse it, and he excuses it away. He's like, "Oh, those are the butt people." It's like, "Oh yeah,
There's gotta
you're
be hundreds.
yeah," but he's pretending that he's
Of
like
thousands of black millionaires.
I'm sure, brother. But it's like,
all the athletes. I mean, the authors.
yeah, no, I'm more than positive. And the entertainment.
I mean, I don't know if
industry
like Cornel West is a millionaire technically, but
I don't know, but I mean, when I
it's
think
not
about
like he's hurting for money.
yeah, when I think about all the entertainers, when I think about music, all the athletes, when I think about all the business owners,
Actors.
all the economists, when I think about all the actors, like it's just not even. It's holy shit. I mean, it's funny. Like if you look at black society in America isn't as bad as I think most people think it is. Like if you actually look at the numbers, like there's some places where it's like it's terrible, but it's like there's some aspects of black Americans that are doing fantastic, phenomenal. And I think that's testament to like the potential that black people have
It's a perseverance.
to
It's hard
accomplish.
work,
Yeah,
and it's
even in the face of adversity. Like, because even back in the day when people there was actual, well, not like there were legislative penalties for being black.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like there's not legislative penalty for being black, even though like de facto rules and like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and the bias. Like back then it's like it was wrong to be black in so many different ways. But even with that, in those times, and those families were able to accomplish. And instead of just looking at the likes of like the big head honchos that were able to speak on all these things, we should look at individuals that were able to persevere in those times of great strife. But instead of talking about that, we're just so upset at one aspect of the historical story that we can't even see the rest of what's going on. Like if you were to bring up like, oh, look at how many black millionaires, they'll be like, oh well, you're just saying that, you're just pointing out exceptions. Those are just the poor people. That's not going to loosen their grip on their ideology. They're going to just look at you like, oh, yeah, you're racist. You find an exception and then you call it a day. You don't want to talk about the real
why don't
racism
we
that
try and
exists.
replicate it?
Yeah. They're not even, we can't even get to that point because we're not even talking about that. That's what, like, even in this, like, they're
We're gonna start
talking
going
about different things.
Let's
Yeah,
go to the
yeah.
next point because we're both like.
But so I mean it's all related, but I mean we could still talk for hours and
White
hours.
supremacy, that was a mess.
Yeah. So it's like because Andrew said
What
like,
did they say?
well, Andrew first was talking about, well, he has a problem with white supremacy. He's like
With saying it's white supremacy.
yeah, with saying it's white supremacy because when people think about white supremacy, they think about the likes like the KKK, and
Or
he
the
doesn't.
Nazis.
Yeah, and he doesn't think it's good, right, to categorize America under that same light, because as it exists today, it's not synonymous with the KKK. But then so
Trust
they
me,
go.
white people do not have a connection to other white people like that.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's plenty of white people that are terrified of me.
We don't care about other white people. Just look at the fights that you see.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if black people get into a fight, everybody's jumping in and helping each other.
Yeah.
When if a black guy started assaulting a white person, We're just sitting there and just like, I wonder how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if he's like kicking his head in, maybe somebody's gonna be like, "Hey, like calm down," because they're like, "You're gonna murder him," but like, no one's gonna jump in. Oh, let me help. That's my brother. Like, no, it's like he's just a fucking guy. Like, I don't give a shit about this white person.
Right. Yeah, man. Meanwhile, it's like that's a different story. I'll bring it up. but they talk. So they go on to design to talk about white supremacy, and then my favorite person on the panel says that it's a system. White supremacy is I define white supremacy as the United States because it was designed for white people, and that's white supremacy.
But it wasn't designed for white people. It was designed by white people that indirectly, because of like something like slavery, then put white people in a the goal wasn't for whiteness to reign supreme.
Right.
It was just like, oh, we're here, we're building something, and now we have these slaves here.
Right.
Well, how do we go about slaves? Because they don't have like the human rights. Because if they did, then they wouldn't be enslaved. So they start writing these like rules. Like it wasn't this
whole
like
ideology that came out of that. So like
it wasn't like this mindset that all these colonists from all over Europe were just like, well, we want to be in a place where white people are on top.
Right. That's why I left Britain. That's why, not the potato famine. I came to oppress black people.
I came to Ireland because I knew that black people were second class citizens.
And also, it's ignoring all the white people who thought that back in the days, like from the founding of the country, from 1776 and even before that, there were people who were just like, this slavery thing is fucked up. So like we're just denying all that happened by like with her words, and that's why I'm just like her ideological hold is ignoring large the plethora that is American history. But and that's what kind of Andrew kept saying. He was like, "Oh no, well America has a great history," and then he's like, Stewart was like, "No."
I think he was saying that they like changed all of this.
Yeah. But
I think I saw some statement somewhere. It was like slavery didn't end till like black people started speaking out or something like that. I was like, no, slavery ended because because a bunch of white people didn't like it anymore.
I mean, those are huge. Like,
obviously Frederick Douglass was like a factor in that.
Yeah.
But like, it took other white people who were like, no, I actually do agree with you. We need to speak to more people and get on. Yeah. Like, it was white people saying like, no, this is fucked up and we probably shouldn't do this anymore.
I mean, there was a whole system that existed before Frederick Douglass was even born to try to help slaves escape. But it's like, it's not even...
And the same thing with any type of segregation or Jim Crow.
Yeah.
It wasn't like black people occupied the Senate.
Yeah, and like
there was voter intimidation. You couldn't even vote in the South.
Right, and see, there's so much.
There was all these white people who were like, "This can't happen anymore."
Yeah. There's so much stuff that happened, and it's like.
My point is, like, in order for any progress to happen, you needed white people to. Be like, this should happen.
Yeah. And it's like the way that they're looking at it is as if there was a couple of good white people. Like you had
the majority of white people, because it's not like if you had 5 they would get a vote passed.
Right. So it's like, but that's why I'm saying like they're mischaracterizing huge. I don't know what their history books look like, or I very much doubt that they're doing too much of any reading about history at all.
Why would they?
They know everything.
They wanted Hillary Clinton to be president.
Oh boy. But
someone who until 9 years ago was openly against gay marriage, so she hasn't even.
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm not even gonna die. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
We're in the 2020s. It hasn't even been 10 years since
we will dive down that. We will dive down that rabbit hole. But Yeah, but then at a point, Stewart turns to Andrew. He's like, "Okay, so do you believe that? Do you not believe that these systems were in place were purposeful, purposefully creating a second class citizens, or if you wouldn't even call them that? Like, or do you think it was purposeful, or do you think that it just doesn't even exist?" And Andrew said, like, he doesn't think that it exists, but the whole thing is premised on the fact that they're talking about whether the country is white supremacist or not. So it's like, but at this point, then Stewart goes, I was like, man, I don't know. Well, there's all these things that existed, and they go list off all the laws that were against
redlining.
Yeah, redlining and the GI Bill that ignored black Americans.
Veterans.
Yeah, so he mentioned all those things, and then he's like, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So he's like affirming that not only is this country white supremacist, but Andrew himself is a racist, whether he knows it or not. And I think Andrew says it's like, well, that's gonna be a little different. Let me do things sequentially. But yeah, but he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Continue where you're going.
Well, he calls him he's not just his America racist, but he's calling Andrew a racist also for
indirectly.
And
then he said something like, "I'm not racist," and then he said, "You're doing."
Yeah, doing a fine job.
You're not doing a good job at proving otherwise, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's I think that part comes later on after. I think my favorite part.
You could.
Yeah.
Stay on what you're on.
Okay. Like there's a
Don't
certain
jump
part.
around.
No, well, I was trying to do things chronologically. That's why.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. No, but I mean, you're on a good point, so keep the thought.
Yeah. No, but at some point later on in the conversation. Yeah. So some other stuff is said in between about being anti-white extremists and we're not even on the same fucking planet. And then the girl cuts him off and she's like, "This is what happens when we don't talk about it." And then
I forgot you said that.
Yeah. So it's like, this is what happens when we don't talk about it. And then she goes on to say how she's shutting him down. She doesn't want to talk to him about it anymore.
Well, no, she said, "This is why I don't talk to white men about these things."
Yeah. But she starts off with saying, "This is what happens when we don't talk about it. I don't talk to white men about these things. I'm shutting you down. And it's like, if you wanted to fix it, you would have fixed it 400 years ago. You had 400 years to do it." And then she goes on to say, so it's like, so I don't want to talk about it with you. And then she says, we've got to talk about it.
She's talking to two other white men.
Yeah. So it's just like, wait. So this is what happens when we don't talk about it. And then you stop the person from talking.
She's just some fat lesbian. It doesn't matter.
Well, like it was
I don't know if she's a lesbian.
Yeah.
She looked like one.
It was so good because it was just like, wow, like you completely mischaracterized. Like it's almost like
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
She's contradicting herself within like the same sentence.
That was my favorite part of the whole thing. I was like, what the fuck? And so after that point, I mean,
that's what I said. She's not a real person.
Yeah, but after that point, that's what when Stewart was like, "Oh yeah, preach," and then Andrew's like, "Oh well, you're cementing the fact that she's calling me a racist," and then Stewart's like, "Oh well, you're doing a good job of doing it on your own," and it's like, so there's like that's where he's drawing they're showcasing, or at this moment,
it honestly just looked like a smear campaign to make him look like a racist.
Yeah. I think it was just because I think
that was just shitty. You're having three people who all agree on something, and then the one guy that doesn't agree is on a video fucking call, and so you can't actually like fully be there and like.
Yeah, it's an element.
You can't fully be there and be like, "Oh my god, here we go with this horse shit."
Yeah.
Where you can't like give these like expressions and showcase things and be like, because if he's like sitting there, he'd be like, "This is why you don't talk to white men." Then why did you come on this show? Like you would, yeah. But
that's funny because she said this. This is why I don't talk to white men. Well, and like Jon Stewart and this guy is also white men sitting right next to her, and they're talking about. And then she looks at them and says, "This is what we have to talk about. This is why I don't talk to white men about. We have to talk about this stuff." It was one of the greatest moments.
It sucked.
And like, and I think they're so stuck in their ideology that they couldn't see past what they were saying. Like I think they're so enveloped in how they feel that they don't like how it like metastasized and like manifested in what they were, how they were speaking or what they were saying. Like that it was just reaffirming their bias. So that's all that mattered. I think Stewart was afraid. He's probably getting some pushback, like, why would you platform someone like that who disagrees with you? Racist. And so he was like pushing back, and that's why he behaved the way that he did. Because...
Well, he looks like a fucking idiot.
Which was crazy, because I started with the Cory Booker, and then it's like, oh wow, this is a cool nuance, going back and forth and talking about things from different angles. Then I come over here, and I'm looking at the writers room, and I was like, those are some simplified points, and like, oh, there's some valid stuff here, but it's like, but it needs to be fleshed out in a different way. And then I find this one, and I was like, holy shit, I struck gold.
No, you didn't. You ruined my day.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, well, like, I watched that, I was depressed. I came in, we talked about it, and then I was like...
And then I watched it fully, and I was like, this is not fun.
Yeah. But, I don't even, like, we could go through the rest of it just for the sake of finishing it out. But, yeah, so talk about it, whatever.
What is that? Appreciate love, bad juju?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because they were talking about how, or Stewart was talking about how you can appreciate the country that you're in and love it, but at the same time talk about the bad stuff that has happened in the past. Uh-huh. And they were kind of, then they started getting to a little bit of a bickering match about like who's simplifying history and who's not. And it's like, oh, you're simplifying it. Like,
well, the problem is both people are.
Yeah. Like it's just like, people are people, countries are countries, and things happen. It was good, it was bad, it was ugly, it was beautiful. There's so many things that happen of it, and we all here as a result of everything that came before. And we could look at the bad shit.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, like, but it's like it should be admired from as a historical context, where it's like, okay, it was all those things, and let's look at the good stuff and try to continue on in that legacy in present day, see how we can translate it from here to there. Let's look at the bad stuff and make sure that we don't continue the bad stuff, and see how we could continue it or stop it from here to there. But instead of like, we're trying to fix the screen with a hammer. So that's essentially what all this just bubbles down to. That was the zenith, and after that it was just like
then it became a clusterfuck.
Yeah, because like he talks about like, oh, he I think he stops himself at some point. He's just like, oh, I'm sorry. Like the older you get, the less control you have over your emotions.
Isn't it the opposite?
Yeah. I mean,
shouldn't the older you get, the more
the whole. I mean.
Yeah, I kind of had an eyebrow raised at that comment. I was like, shouldn't you be like more measured as you get older?
That's what the whole
what do you like, have early onset dementia?
Yeah. Like there's kingdoms in like they call it tribes now, but like there's kingdoms in Africa where it's like the council of elders.
They're wise and they're measured, and they're like, let's not do that. That's too rushed.
Right.
You're rushing too much. Sit and wait.
Right. Whenever there's like a argument or
over emotional as an older man.
Yeah, like it's understood that the council elders are like the rational thinkers. Like that's who you went to whenever there was some kind of conflict that couldn't get resolved.
It's like a massive character fault.
Yeah.
Sorry,
exactly.
Man.
It's like,
every year that goes by, I control my emotions less and less.
Right. It's just like, no, well, that means that the way that you behave...
Like, when you're 70, you're going to be a piece of shit.
And that also means, in my opinion...
Everybody that bothers you, you're just going to start yelling at.
Right. And that could only be true, like, that what he's saying, getting more and more, less and less control of your emotions the older you get. That means that you were, like, towing the line. You were pretending to speak in a certain kind of way and hiding how you really felt, as opposed to just explain how you feel. Just just
not
raw
necessarily.
dog.
It's just like when you got upset, you were able to control yourself.
Yeah, but it's like, if you can, then in my opinion, you're not a good communicator, which is weird for me to say about Jon Stewart. I mean,
Well,
but
if every year that he gets older, he's going to become more unhinged with his reaction.
yeah.
That would make him a poor communicator.
Yeah, I mean, if what he says is 100% true, like him being like,
I think it's
the
all
older he
just
gets-
bullshit. They're all just.
He was trying to
just saying.
I think he was trying
something.
to. Yeah, I think you're right. I think he was just trying to excuse his poor, like, because I think he said motherfucker, and then he was just like, all right. Yeah, he just kind of held it back, but yeah, that whole concept it's not worth it getting into. He misspoke. I'll let it go because he's old.
But there was just so much bullshit that was happening.
Yeah. And then there was a point where I'm just like, okay, this might be like a redemption moment, but then they like Will Smith at the Oscars meme.
Jesus Christ.
Or they're like they start talking about the solutions, and but of course the lady was talking about the her solution, like how do we solve this? It's like, okay, that wasn't how do we solve this moving forward? And she says that well, we need to have conversations regularly and have grace and compassion. And that's right after she sat down.
Oh, yeah.
Told
him that she's not gonna. This is why she doesn't talk to white men.
Yeah. So like, and that's like, well, they were sitting down having a conversation. Now, I mean, like that's what I would say.
Yeah,
like
these
if I'm
aren't
sitting
people.
down, I'm just like, well, we're having a
That's
conversation
the
now.
point. These aren't
like,
people.
How do we inject grace and compassion into this conversation right now in order to move forward? Because I feel like the grace and compassion has lacked from before. It's like, how do we...
See, the funny thing, it used to be the people on the right had no compassion. And that the people on the left were the ones that were always like, well, people
Caring
are different
about-
and everything like that. Where now it's like the opposite. Now it's like the only people that have compassion are like conservative Republicans.
Yeah. And that's why what was his name? Bill Maher was talking about. He's like, I haven't changed my positions. I'm not. He's like, I'm just like, it just looks like I'm shifting because like now crime is legal. He's like, I still think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And if you asked me 20 years ago, I would have thought that robbing a store was a bad idea.
Well, he talked about like spending. He's like, like us spending billions or trillions of dollars to fight wars in foreign countries that I didn't think we should have been in. I was against, and just increasing our budget to like unfathomable amounts of trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
Like, I'm also gonna say that doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
But now it sounds like a conservative. So it's just like, oh, so like now.
So he's just against unnecessary spending,
right.
and then everybody just thinks that he's a Republican now.
Right.
Because he's like criticizing their side.
Right, it's so crazy because it's like that's how I think I identify. Because I remember we were talking about like I was like, oh, I think I lean left, and then you're like, oh, it depends on who you talk to, and I was like, oh shit, well Bill Maher is conservative. Well, shit. Yeah.
They call Bill Maher like conservative.
Yeah.
Or he's becoming.
He's starting to lean.
He's starting to lean.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So if he's leaning right, so like I don't know if people believe me when I say I lean left. I don't know. And same thing.
Well, Rogan says he leans left.
Well, the thing is, I saw Cenk talk to I don't remember the guy.
Patrick Bet David.
Is that his name?
That is his name.
Oh.
He's an Iranian immigrant.
Oh shit! You know what I'm talking about?
I
Yeah,
know who Patrick,
you read my mind.
I know who Patrick Bet David is.
I've seen him a few times. I've always enjoyed seeing him talk to people because I feel like he's no bullshit. Like he's just like and real fleshed out. Yeah. And like he'll speak his mind and like kind of drag you into the muck. Like, no, like tell me how you really feel. Like tell me someone that you were like, oh man, this guy's a pain in the ass to debate. Like he just really like raw. Like it's really cool. Like you don't have to guesstimate as to like how this person might think, or you just like just right out there, like the way that conversation should be. And I think if conversations are like that, then when you get older, you don't feel like you're less control your emotions. I'm gonna stop swinging that. But like, so he's talking to Cenk, and Cenk was explaining, and I think they're talking about Joe Rogan, and Cenk was explaining how he's like, yeah, you guys sat down, you had a few podcasts, and everything seemed really amicable, and seemed like you guys agreed on a lot of stuff. And Cenk went on to say like, oh yeah, but ever since then, like he's talked to a lot of other people who are right leaning, and he's turned to conservative, and he probably doesn't even know it. I was just like, holy shit, like. You really, he really thinks this.
No, I don't think he does.
I think he does.
Have you watched his programs?
I had not in a very long time, man.
Yeah. It's all nonsense.
I'm not a fan. But
they're funded by super PACs.
I believe it. But I'm pretty. I
or
think
like
that
some donors.
Yeah. But I was always under the impression that he was expressing himself like, oh, this is how he believes, but it's just that
they need views because they're dying.
Well, that's the thing that came up when Anna debated Ben Shapiro, I think it was Politico. She was just they were talking about media in general, and she's like, yeah, I don't like how things are. We have to. She's like, I don't like it, and sometimes I'm guilty of it because this is gonna get views, and I was like, ooh, oh shit.
Well, she's on YouTube, so it's different.
But I didn't think that how she felt was disingenuous.
Ben
or how
Shapiro
he felt.
does it.
Yeah.
With
he
at
does.
least his headlines.
Yeah. But if you sit down,
they're trying to make money.
Yeah, and they're on opposite sides, and they're pandering to. But I think that this is how they. I think they actually feel this way, but I guess they're packaging it differently.
People do not think that Joe Rogan is an alt-right neo-Nazi.
I'm sure that there are people who do think that.
No, I mean Sank doesn't think that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think
people who are political commentators who know politics, who watch the podcast because Rogan's had X amount of people that are in the political sphere or that are actual politicians and presidential candidates that they've watched his content. They know that he's not a racist. But if they do a video on it, that gets them views.
No, I think that I don't think Cenk thinks that Joe Rogan's racist. I think
I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah, no, I feel you. But it just clicked in my head what you were saying. But I don't think that Cenk thinks that Joe Rogan's a racist. I think he's saying that because one, he doesn't want to not only say that he's wrong or wants to admit that he's wrong. I think he doesn't. I think he thinks he's right in the sense that he thinks that Joe Rogan.
He also said he could kick his ass.
Yeah, but they were talking about that. But I think he sees Joe Rogan as at least him and his platform as like a gateway drug where people will start to lean towards the right.
That's not the case because he has other people on there.
Yeah, but I think that
Andrew Yang on there twice.
But the way that he said it, he said that Joe Rogan is starting to lean this way, and I don't think he thinks that way about him personally and the way he actually votes. But I think he thinks about it the way that other people listening in listen to him, and it sounds like he's pandering these right-wing talking points because I think he sees everything in binary colors. Everything is either red or blue. So he's he looks at Joe, and before Joe was more blue. And he's rational, but he's more blue and more middle of the line.
These people.
And
these
now,
people are psychopaths.
Yeah, no, but I think I'm
this isn't like some generic person. This is
no, it's true. But I think
psychopaths.
I think he's phrasing it in a certain kind of way because Joe's starting to talk about things that end up lining more with the right side of the
celebrities don't have opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris Pratt probably has an opinion because he's this grounded person who's religious and hunts with his kids.
Yeah.
To put food on the table, and he's no, I'm teaching them this he's a person.
Yeah, but I
don't want to throw somebody on the bus, but Jake Gyllenhaal might not be a human being.
I feel
he's just this entity that just has thoughts that he thinks he needs to have, and
to reflect what he thinks that people are gonna applaud.
That's why these people have mental breaks.
Yeah, because they're just living in
right. They're
lives.
62, and all of a sudden they're these unhinged with these robot smile because they don't know who they are.
Yeah,
they've been trying to be something else, and it's the same thing with Sank.
Yeah. Well,
or it could potentially be the same thing with Sank because he's trying to maintain.
I could see
his show.
I think when I look at
Rogan
actors
doesn't
and
have
stuff
him
like
on
that
anymore. That's why.
Yeah. Oh, and he's just trying to get attention. Rogan's big, and he's just oh well, okay. I was just gonna
their
spice up some
show
headlines.
is dead.
Yeah,
It's
I get it.
it's dead.
I get it. I see it. I mean,
Because all the Republicans passed them.
yeah, and like people who would be in the middle
All
of
the
the road.
libertarians.
Yeah, because I
everybody-
used to listen to them. I used to like, oh
Exactly,
wow, I
but
want
that's
to
why
hear
they're-
what's going on, and these guys seem like
That's why
they're
they're
taking
nuts
honest
now.
takes.
They're the type of
But-
person that are like sank screaming about how people against masks are like cock-sucking, like faggot murderers.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, why are you screaming?
Yeah.
Screaming.
Relax.
You know, these cock fucks need to wear a mask. And you're just like, all right, that's like
Yeah.
unhinged.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Well,
Like,
I think it's like a
like no one does that. Like Shapiro's not doing that.
yeah.
Crowder's not doing that. Rogan, Lex Friedman, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Anybody in that sphere doesn't do that, but he does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
He's
that's one of
Alex
his.
Jones.
I think it's like his trademark. He's trying to be like that big. But
I
think,
just
like,
thought of that right now. He's basically like a liberal,
the liberal
Alex
Alex
Jones.
Jones. Yeah.
Offensive, shits on people for like their attractiveness or
Yeah,
like,
you know, like those.
or like their dick size or something like that.
There's this one guy that I listen to, and like, I like listening to conversations, cause like even like you said, like Ben Shapiro, it's like I've heard him in a few conversations. I was like, wow, this guy's really intelligent. I really like this. But then I'll go on this thing, and then like it's like a bunch of like just ideologically driven points. I'm just like, well, I don't want to hear this shit.
Well, he's
But-
great in debates.
Right. So like
But he's producing content for his platform.
I love
that needs
listening-
views, so he's going
Yeah.
to lean into his base.
Right. But I just love listening to the conversational aspect
Of him.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Like
if he goes on a podcast or a debate, he's perfectly fine because now he's like, well, I'm in a realm of ideas and I need
I'm
to
gonna
be
flesh
able to
out these things. Yeah.
I know what I know, and I got the background in it, and I can
Yeah.
go into it.
Yeah. And same thing with like I like seeing when Cenk is talking about things. Like I liked it when he was talking to Tucker Carlson in that one. I think it was Politico also. Politico. I don't know. But
Sync is not good. What are you talking about?
when him and Tucker Carlson
What about
were going
Dinesh
back and forth.
D'Souza?
Dinesh, he sounds familiar. Did he write that one
was-
book about?
He was,
yeah,
the,
yeah,
he was
yeah.
the Indian guy
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
in the
I
Reagan
know.
administration.
Yeah.
Who then went to jail for some
Yeah.
petty bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something that everybody does, but because he didn't do it the right way.
He wrote an interesting book. I'm a fan of it. Yeah. But
Yeah, they had a debate at Politico,
oh, I didn't see that.
and it's not good.
Okay. I don't know about that. Well, I
It
saw.
was just him calling him a criminal.
Okay.
Like, how are you going to believe a felon?
Yeah, well, that's not a conversation, though. That's not a conversation.
Yeah, but
Well,
that's
like,
what he is. That's
well,
what
like,
his,
I
that's what
saw
his
him-
nephew's
like him and I
and
remember you
Ethan,
telling me about
and
it.
Ethan.
Him and well,
Ethan Klein, that guy.
okay.
The YouTuber.
I think he's on
H3,
sometimes
H3,
with
H3
yeah,
podcast,
he's on there with yeah. But
like that's what they're like. It's like
but I've seen Cenk talk to Tucker Carlson. I mean, was it Tucker? Man, am I butchering names? I think he was talking to.
I don't know if they did him and Tucker.
Yeah, I think Cenk had a debate with. I'll look it up later. I'm lazy. But yeah, he had a debate with Tucker or a conversation, like it was a debate, but they were having a conversation about things and Cenk and Tucker, like it was great. Like he's just like, oh well, you can see like if you take this stance, like you would how some people might get this impression of you versus that, and they're like, oh yeah, they ended up actually agreeing on a lot of things that, and I did not think that was gonna happen, and it was a phenomenal conversation because these are two people on like opposite sides of the ideological political spectrum, and then here they are and talking about things and they acknowledge like they were even trying to focus on talking about things that they disagreed with, and there's a lot of things that they were able to come together with, and that was I love to see stuff like that. I love to see like conversations and just like a little bit
Yeah, but that's not what it's always like with him.
Yeah, I can't say how he's always like, but this is like what I've seen. I'm just like, oh, I know he's capable of this. So it was just disappointing when I see him just devolve into whatever this is now, like whatever it seems to be now. Like when he was talking on that one guy, he was just saying how Rogan's starting to lean right, and I think he means that like Rogan is like a gateway for other people to be exposed to these other talking points. And in his opinion, from the way he's talking about things, I think he really believes like everything that he's putting out there is right. Like you're saying, like they might know things, but they're so focus on this ideology, that they're just trying to bring people into understanding why this ideology is the right way. They're not concerned with the independent facts and where they might lie, or how people might be middle of the road, or how there might be another solution outside of this ideological direction. So I think that's I think what he's saying is like he really believes what he's saying. But yeah, I think when he looks at Joe Rogan, he sees it as a threat because Joe Rogan's so big, so popular, and has leanings towards like down the middle, where he's just like, oh yeah, like I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that, I talk to different people. This stuff I have a strong opinion about. This stuff I don't know anything about.
Which is also an issue.
Yeah.
So you probably feel slighted a bit.
Yeah.
Because when he was going on Rogan, he was bigger.
Yeah. I didn't know that. I never checked back on their numbers. I did. I knew I stopped listening to them, but I never. I never talked to anybody else about it. I was like, oh, you guys listen to this? I was just.
Well, I mean, because Turks were a popular thing. And
yeah.
It was more well known probably than like the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, but then going back to Jon Stewart. Eventually we'll finish this reviewing this segment. But he was talking about they were talking about solutions, and then they were talking about investing in infrastructure. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. They were talking investing in families and stuff like that, and or investing in infrastructure that would help support families, like the one bill that Biden had earlier this year. That's what it sounded like they were
Build
going
back
to.
Better?
Yeah, and I thought that they were going to start gearing the conversation in that direction. I was like, all right, cool. This is about to be a conversation. It's about to be redemptive. They're about to just talk about the ins and outs of like, oh, this sounds good, or like whether it's affordable or not, or how much money should we put in versus what we can versus what we will, or what we have been doing, what was shut down. But not like they're talking about that. And Jon Stewart turns to Andrew. He's like, well, this sounds like something that you would support because this is something I think Chip proposed. And he's like, well, then, like, so are you in line with this? Like, are you down with this? Something that you want to do? And Andrew says, like, he's like, yeah, but he's like, but I think it's important to also, he's like, on top of that, I think it's important to focus on focusing on education and the family. Uh-huh. And then that devolved into like they're like, how dare you talk about education and the family? It's like, that's what infrastructure is. I mean, well, the counterpoint was like, he says, oh well, I think by you talking about us focusing on education and the family, like you're trying to make it like, oh, black people are responsible for what happened, and you're ignoring the big issues that have really ended and like made black people end up where they are. It's like with this mass incarceration and economic opportunity.
Because we talked this before. It's like the crack laws were racist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's racist because you have the crack.
Yeah, like it's
so if you don't have the crack, you don't then get to experience the racism.
Well, like
of the crack.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. It's just that like
it's because it's taking out personal choice.
Yeah. So like he's like
when you first said that, and I said like that, I don't even know what I remember. I said I blurted something out.
Yeah.
But like black people who educated their kids and pushed them to, make good economic decisions.
Yeah.
And gave them a good work ethic. They succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't know any example where like a black man and woman were like, all right, you're gonna read and write, and here's this baseline, and you gotta do your chores, you gotta take responsibility, and you gotta do things and make sure this is clean, and take care of your family when you have a family, and da 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 da. Then you're gonna work hard, and learn this skill, learn that skill.
Right.
And then it's like, well, how did your kid turn out? Utterly broke and despaired and was an alcoholic and never amounted to anything. Yeah. It's like, really? You guys kind of did everything right. Like, that's what happens when you grow up in a white society. Like you see the examples of what happens when you're black and you have a good foundation.
But I mean, it does happen. Like I know somebody.
No, I'm saying as a rule of thumb.
Yeah. You're right. You're
Black
right.
parents who put forth a great effort into doing the best they can to parent and raise a kid,
Yes.
kid usually comes out okay.
Right. So it's
Not
like,
necessarily a doctor. You're not making
Right.
$85 billion a year.
yeah.
But are you paying the rent and feeding yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
And
You're
see-
not living in a crack den shooting up heroin as your friends gang rape your daughter.
Right.
As you're like tripping your balls out. Like,
Yeah.
And then you're like laughing at her being
Oh
raped.
fuck.
Like that's not happening.
Did you? Oh, there's this movie.
Let me get back on my point. But like,
I'll tell you later. Yeah.
like good parenting produces more often than not good kids.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like,
a good-
so like better education and better home environments. What are you saying? It's like saying more positive outcomes.
Like if you let go of the grasp of that ideology, like what he's saying is
Stupid.
directly it's directly in line with infrastructure because
Think about Black Wall Street.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Black
like
Wall Street was created during Jim Crow.
yeah, but the thing like
It was created
Yeah, that's
during
what I'm
a
saying.
time
That's what I'm
where
like-
you couldn't legally vote.
that was my point before. Like
You-
look at how much we're able to accomplish in a time of intense
What do you think
oppression.
what do you think their background was?
Yeah.
Crack and malt liquor? No,
Yeah.
it was like, we're gonna go to church on Sunday, and
Right.
hey, did you read your book today?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, I follow. But the thing is, like,
it wasn't your dad fist fighting every Friday when he had too much to drink with like neighbors in the street. Like, probably wasn't their background.
right.
Probably like strong family values. Like,
But they're not even
did you
talking
do your
about
homework?
that. They're not-
You
they're
got to
not
make
even-
sure you do your homework because if you don't know these things, you're not going to be able to be successful.
Right.
Like,
But see, but like people would hear that and they're like, they have like a knee jerk reaction. And like, I don't know. It sounds like you're saying that, and this is what they ended up saying. Like, it sounds like you're saying that that black culture is inferior to everybody else, and it's just like.
I love the culture. It's like, because I remember Killer Mike said something funny. He's like, I want to have a shirt that says, it's something like white people won, get over it.
Jesus.
But you can say that about like East Asians. Who's more superior? Black American culture or Japanese culture?
No, well, this is my thing because it's not because when they talk about Black American culture, again, they're treating it
I'm
like a
saying-
monolith, and like monolith.
That's my point.
They're not,
I don't
talking
like talking about this
yeah.
like when you're saying superior. It's like, well, why don't we?
Well, this is the
Because
thing. Like,
Japanese and Koreans are far more superior than any African American family, like social structure.
yeah, but
They all come over here and become
yeah,
and earn
But if we
3 times as much as black people.
and if we sparse out, like, okay, well, let's just compare
I'm
immigrants.
saying if you want to go down that route, you actually are going to look at it and be like, are black people inferior? Like you're going to have a question
Yeah,
instead of just being like, no, we need to have just more positive.
yeah,
We need to figure out to like clean up these areas so that it's not the way it is,
yeah.
and that they can live.
Right, but it's like when I look at that, like when I flesh out that question, like okay, black people have inferior cultures, like no, because if you look at Japanese,
Oh, I see what you were
Japanese
saying,
and
like,
Chinese immigrants,
it's not-
and you compare it to
Well, people
Ghanaian
in
and Nigerian
Japan-
immigrants. No, I'm not even like the people who are destitute in Japan versus people who are. But I'm just saying, like, if you look at because the immigrants that come from Japan and China, are cream of the crop. The immigrants that come from Ghana, South Africa, from Nigeria, cream of the crop. And when they come over here, they're largely successful. It's like, why is that? It's the same thing as the foundation. So it's not like an inherent black inferiority. Like the inferiority has nothing to do with the color of your skin, but we're associating it with color of the skin, and we're simplifying this conversation to be racial when it's not racial. It's economic. It's like no, like if you look at like is Appalachian white culture superior than successful black culture that
Or like HBCU graduates.
right, like it's like no, hell no, it's not. It's like yeah, HBCU carry.
But that was kind of like my
culture
point.
is
Like if we're gonna just boil it down to
what they
all black people and their culture, and then all white, it's like
that it's a
you get my point. It's
yeah,
like
no,
if you take Africa and then be like, are you saying Africa's inferior to East Asia? I'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but
Have you
there's-
seen East
Yeah.
Asia?
But there's so many so many
No, but I'm
contextual
saying-
things that go into
No,
it.
exactly.
And
That's
they're
my
just,
point.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. No, I'm
if
with you.
you're
I'm with you. I'm just
boiling
saying
it
that
down to some
they,
simplistic thing. It's like, yeah, Korea and Japan are fucking phenomenal.
yeah, I'm just
Would
saying.
you move to the Congo?
That it's,
No.
I'm just saying it's a crazy conversation to go down that route because there's so many
It's also
contextual
crazy
clues
to not
that-
acknowledge the issues that black people face from a
Right.
cultural standpoint.
Right. Well, but it's like, but the black
like
people that they're talking about.
Single motherhood is high, or single parenthood is high.
Yeah.
Well, you want to cut that down
Yeah.
because single parenthood leads to
And that's
higher
the-
incarceration rates,
Yeah.
higher what is it? Not being able
Let-
to read and write. What is
less
that? Illiterate.
Less. Yeah.
Illiteracy rates, less high school graduation,
That-
less income. It's really like if you want to be a shitty human being, be raised in a single parent home.
Yeah. And see, and that's not unique to Black Americans.
It's
like
the
you could
same
look at this
statistical breakdown
across
every
racial
race.
lines, which is why it's not a racial conversation. That's why I
Like
hate.
single white mothers' poverty rates is like 75%.
Which is why I hate talking about, like, it's a stupid conversation to boil it down to racial because, like, wait, no, well, but the Nigerian immigrant is different than the inner city black kid raised in, like, but it's like they've just decimated the conversation to a point where it's like it's not even.
Well, they're trying to play got you.
Yeah.
Like I said from the
yeah,
beginning. It's
yeah.
just like, oh, like, well, he's gonna say something that is gonna be like touching on racial lines, so we're
Right.
gonna just make sure that he's a racist.
Right. Instead of taking what he said about the family building, and I'm like, that was a part of infrastructure. That was a part of this bill. Would you support that bill? Yeah, but not that
Like,
much
you-
money.
You
Like,
were in Chicago, right?
yeah.
Who is gonna walk through a bad part of Chicago and say, nothing wrong here?
Yo, there's some places in Chicago you might walk down the wrong place, or like somebody random will come up to you like, what the fuck are you doing here? It's like,
You get my point. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to be in that environment and not acknowledge that there are some cultural issues here that
Yeah.
need to be changed.
but it's not a racial thing, which is why, like, when they simplified it into that, like when he
Because didn't he
Andrew-
say black culture or no?
No, he didn't. That's
They
the
were
thing.
saying.
They were saying they simplified what he was saying into this
Oh,
box.
that's
in
right.
order
He
to-
was
which is
saying
why-
like just
yeah.
in general you need
Yeah.
to have like
Yeah, because they were saying
because there are issues of this in the black community, they need to do this better.
yeah, because they were
And then
talking about
because they
solutions.
said that, they're like, oh, are you trying to say that?
Yeah, exactly. They were playing the gotcha game because like they were saying,
That's even worse
solutions.
than I thought. I forgot that happened.
They're saying solutions about investing in infrastructure. What do you think? He's like, yeah, but. And because he categorized
It's like what we've
education
said-
and family as different from infrastructure, which they
We've
could
said
have talked
before,
about.
like if the foundation isn't strong, then what the fuck?
You building upon it.
Yeah.
So it's like, but they could have had a conversation about like whether they think education and family. It's like, okay, well he counts that as separate from infrastructure. Okay, well we include that in infrastructure, or whether we do or we do not. We're talking about all the same thing because the counter arguments was, oh well, you're ignoring the fact of mass incarceration, economic opportunity. And how do you explain like the
I hate
person
the mass
who's like
incarceration.
a low income? Well, the thing is that's still in line with the family. Like, I mean, if you're against...
But no, what I'm saying is it's like this notion that like black men who are just doing nothing wrong at all in their lives are doing 5-year bids
Yeah.
is just astoundingly stupid.
Right, and instead, like, that's a separate
Because
conversation.
we know that black people commit 50% of the murders in this country. You don't think there's going to be, at least to some extent, a disproportionate representation? Along with the poverty rates.
Yeah.
So the poverty rates are high, the murder rates are high, assault rates are high,
Right.
theft is high.
Now, they could say that...
Amongst representation of black people.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that exists, so like, why are we surprised that now they're overrepresented in the prison system?
And see, and there's two strong arguments that they could create that doesn't... Like, instead of saying mass
Or like
incarceration...
tougher
they could
sentencing
say,
and stuff like
yeah,
that.
they
Which
could
is
say-
fair, but
yeah.
like they're still committing crimes.
Yeah, but... Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
That's
they
my
could
whole
say,
thing. It's like,
no, I'll follow.
Because when people say like, oh, mass incarceration, it's like, so when a black man just decides that today is
What
the
are you
day that
arguing
he's going
for?
to physically assault somebody because he didn't like the look that happened, which
Yeah.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that guy's now in jail because he's a dumbass.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's
yeah.
ultra violent and doesn't know how to act in society in
Right.
a way that just is like normal for everybody else.
And that's not unique to black culture. That's why in the
Any
prison
poor
system you
culture.
have exactly. That's why in the prison system you have like a bunch of everyone like divides by racial lines and like yeah, there's the gang thing, but it's like oh, because you have a bunch of stupid skinheads, you got a bunch of stupid niggas, and like they're all in the same place. So yeah, they're gonna divide it on racial lines. Yeah, they're just like it's not a
Not
uniquely
everybody in
black
prison
thing,
is
it's not a
just like this
uniquely-
guy that's just like, oh my god, why did I do that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's usually people are like, yeah, I've been arrested 12 times. Fuck's matter? It's like,
yeah, 100%.
Jesus.
And see, and that's why we have to talk about the other issues that contribute to what the outcomes are for these populations, as opposed to simplifying all by, oh yeah, blacks are inferior. Is that what you're saying? You're racist, fuck. It's like that's such a lazy analysis of like
So
such
that's
a
why I don't like
disingenuous
that
way of
whole-
having the
you
conversation.
keep pointing the fingers at like mass incarceration. It's like, well, let's talk about like how to alleviate that.
Yeah.
Not arrest felons. Like I just don't
Yeah,
understand
see,
it.
like if their argument was, well, the statistics aren't properly represented because we happen to target African American communities or black communities, and it seems to be a self-perpetuating cycle because like
Well, they
these
are
crimes
targeted
also
because black people who are poor tend to live in cities,
yeah.
which
what
means
I'm saying,
highly condensed populations.
yeah. But like, see, and like they come up like,
10,000 black people are living in like a block radius.
Right.
10,000 poor white people are living in like trailer parks, spread out, who are
Right.
having random individual conflicts or like
Right.
individual drug use that
Right.
in case things get too crazy and someone's fucked up and gets into a fight with another person, then the cops get called. It's like, come on, Harold, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
So
Because
strictly
they even
numbers
know their
of-
names because they're
yeah,
constantly
'cause it's
interacting
more of
with
a
them.
personal
This is the fifth time I've been
relationship.
called today, man.
Yeah,
Like, what's
yeah,
going on? Like,
yeah.
you know we're taking you in, motherfucker.
100%.
Like, whereas,
right.
like, black people, it's just like, no, it's 50,000 people in, like, a half a mile
right.
thing, and then, like, they're all got nothing going on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, idle minds are going to do
Right, and
fucked
you're,
up
you're
shit.
just a number at
and
that
they're
point.
just trying to get
You're
by,
just-
and then
yeah.
the cop, there's like, what, like 8 cops or 4 cops? So
Yeah.
then they've got to remember 20, 50,000. Like, they don't give a
Yeah,
shit. They're
yeah.
just trying to, like, make it to the next day.
Yeah, yeah. You live in a city where it's like you can meet a new person every day, and you still won't meet everybody
Yeah.
by the end of 50 years.
So like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
leads to them being highly more incarcerated because
Right.
there's just more condensed population. You spread them out
Right.
over the areas, they're gonna be like,
Yeah, no,
come
no,
on,
that's
come
100%
on,
true.
come on, Robert, don't let me come out here again, all right?
Right, right.
It's like, no, I got it. I'm just gonna go to bed.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, actually, no.
Call your mom for me. Like,
No, it's like, actually, I'm gonna go over to my neighbors. That would be a good choice.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
all
yeah,
right,
yeah.
you know, have a good night, you know,
Right.
and then, like, they go.
Right.
Because they don't want to keep doing that because they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I've got to do other calls tonight, man. Like,
Right.
there's only 2 of us on the force.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, I went to high school with you. I know you had a bad run.
Oh, yeah, you could, like, know each other, yeah.
So it's like, so I think there's that aspect of it too. But I think there's when they're talking about populations being targeted, it's like I'm sure that there were.
But I'm saying if
there
you're
were
trying,
systems
also
that
if you're
were in
trying to
place
lower
back in the
crime,
day That yeah, but
if you're
I'm
trying
not.
to lower
I'm not
crime, you don't go into like where you live,
yeah. No, but
or
what
where you
I'm
go,
saying-
Morgantown,
Right. But what I'm saying is like the people who would argue
Martinsburg.
against.
Like you go to areas
Yeah.
that are, guess what, gonna
Yeah.
have more of you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not because it has more of me, but
It's
because
a higher population, so if you want to cut down on crime, you go after the larger group of
right,
population.
right. But I'm saying that there's an argument that like, oh well,
Oh, they're
back in the
targeting
day,
black people?
yeah, like well, back in the day they've targeted this population, and now even if everything all racial equalities here and all that jazz, we still have much more higher statistics from this population versus that population because historically we've targeted this group more, so we just happen to have more crime statistics from this
Which
group
is like
versus
with
that
New York
group,
and stop
which
and
is a
frisk.
fair, yeah, exactly. So it's like
91% of gun crime is being committed by non-whites.
right, so they're just like, oh wow, see that's
So
that's
why
proof
would you
that-
ever want to stop a white person in New York City if you
Right.
want to cut down on gun crime?
right, but at the same time, but
It would
at-
cause no dip.
yeah, but at the same time, the reason why it was chastised is because it's
Well,
like,
'cause it was
well,
stupid.
not all 13-14% of the black people commit the 91% of crimes, but
So
you
you
treat
can't
them
just,
as
like-
much as such.
They were going
and
up
that's
to
why,
like dudes in polos. And
yeah,
shit.
yeah. I mean,
Suits.
shit. My dad was pulled over in New York, and they're like, "Is this your vehicle?" He's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
I mean,
but,
they were doing fucked up shit, but I'm saying
but it's a
the
self
reason why
fulfilling cycle.
The reason why they wanted to try and do something with the law is because of the unbelievable lopsided numbers in gun crime that was coming from a specific community.
No, I follow, but I'm just saying, like, some people would argue that it wasn't because of that; it was a racial thing that sparked the initial look. And it's like, all right, we can have a conversation about that. Let's dive into the numbers. What happened first? What happened next? But either way, no matter if it started because of just strictly limited crime, or it started strictly to target black people, it's like, well, let's look at how do we get to a better place? Do we get to a better place by ignoring that population? No, that can't be a solution. We can't not arrest these people from doing these things in high dense populated areas. That's just a different relationship with law enforcement.
They're just gonna have higher statistics.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. And
until they're able to make more money and then move out,
right?
And go into these getting houses,
yeah.
or like the ranch.
Yeah,
right? Like getting like a ranch.
Yeah.
Is it a ranch house? Or
yeah, the one level. Yeah.
It's called a ranch.
Yeah, rancher.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a rancher.
Yeah, or I call it ranch. Yeah.
I don't know.
Floor plan's a ranch house. I know what you mean. It's not. You don't have to go up and down the stairs.
You would think that's a more affordable house.
Yeah, it is. It's
so
more
like
affordable.
When you start moving out and you're in the
nicer.
suburbs, it's like cops aren't looking to arrest a bunch of people that they have
are
to
homeowners who have invested interest in their community.
Not only that, but they just have to go from like house to house to house. Like you got a project where there's like 50 guys that are committing felonies on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm pretty sure Tyrone lives here or Jermaine lives here, so let's just stake it out.
It's a different relationship.
Because you're
because in those areas, it's like, like if you're in New York City, it's like, it's like crime and you're worried about people. If you're out in...
you can't walk out at night, and then you have like entire projects where there's like literally tens of thousands of people maybe living in them. It's like, okay,
yeah.
Like if 0.5% of them are committing crime, it's still like hundreds or dozens of people that live in one building.
right. Versus like if you go out to the suburbs, it's like we all like some
like
I know
there's not 10 people living in your neighborhood committing felonies in the suburbs.
Like I think one of the things that
unless that felony is like they have marijuana.
Yeah, right. Terrible people.
But I have 5 plants instead of the legal 3.
But in Montgomery County, I remember I was out there and I saw a sign and it was like beware around this area because the law enforcement has to go. There's like a lot of overpopulation of deer, so like the police were out shooting some deer or something like that. I was just like, that's different than Chicago.
We have to shoot deer.
Yeah. So it's like just the law enforcement is just different in different places and different locations for the different reasons. But I'm just saying, like, if you could, like, there's an argument to be made, like, if you want to, like, look at the point that, okay, well, this was racially motivated to target this population versus not. It's like, okay, well, how do we get this population to the next level, or should we stop? Like now, there's crime. We could argue about how it started, but now that there's these statistics, how do we get to a better place? And I don't think ignore those crimes is the answer. I don't think anybody would argue that. So I think it's ridiculous that they found this point to be a point of contention, especially since he didn't even mention crime. He talked about education and family.
He started off bad.
Yeah.
Remember, like he didn't.
Yeah, and then they started going back.
Because he didn't handle. Because they were talking. What was it about the white supremacy or something like that? And he didn't handle that correctly.
Yeah, because he's talked about, well, this is why Republicans are going to get voted in because you're anti-white racism, and then it's like that.
Well, no, he could have gone that route, but he didn't follow it by like talking about the past issues. Because like when they started bringing up redlining, he then started, because he then said like, oh, white supremacy's never existed.
Yeah.
And there's been but he said no white supremacist system has ever existed. And then they started, talking about Jim Crow.
Right.
Where he was hanging on too much of his point of saying that the country isn't founded on white supremacy.
Yeah.
Where he should have just said, it's not founded on white supremacy, but throughout our time we have had these instances where these systems have been put in place.
Right.
Instead, he didn't do that, and then when they brought it up, and then when he has to then say, "Oh no, like those happened," but then it seems like he's on his heels, and he's like, "It's like, oh wait," and then like it just went downhill because then they had him.
Right.
So then when he then comes in and starts talking about that, then they're able to go back, kind of like subconsciously, and attach that and be like, well, it sounds like you're saying this, this, and this, and then now they have this precedent through the whole conversation where he looks like he's potentially a racist.
Yeah, and they already had their ideas going into the conversation where it's like, oh, well, you line up this way, all right.
Also, it didn't help that he was doing that via satellite or whatever, Zoom call.
But so let's try to finish this up real fast, and then we'll next time finally get to the Cory Booker review, maybe, depending on what happens. But yeah, like it's just.
For a second, I thought you said Ryan Gosling. I was like, what did he do?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's just it's a crazy. It's not even worth getting into it.
It's too much.
Well, like it's not. It's just that like, he said like, oh, well, how do you explain a woman who has low income and doesn't have childcare? It's like, yeah, that's infrastructure. That's focusing on the family structure. Like that's. I mean this isn't.
You shouldn't have had a kid.
They're not talking about different things. Like it's just they're just mad at from what he said. And this isn't like we'll touch on these subjects later, but like this isn't the based off of what was said in this interview. It's not worth diving into these subjects. So it's just that's Finn. Well, we'll talk about this.
Maybe we'll try and change it up a little bit for the next podcast, so it's just not everything is about race.
Yeah, no, I feel like we've gone on a long stretch where you're just like, oh yeah, let's just talk. We started talking about a couple things, and then we dived into race, and now we're just like, we found home.
But a warm space.
Yeah. But yeah, next time we'll talk about some other stuff, but and we'll mix in the other stuff that's happened with Jon Stewart and talking about the racial thing, and eventually we'll get to the Cory Booker interview, which probably won't even be as long as all these other things because we kind of covered it all.
I hope not.
Yeah, no. I don't think it's funny. It's the longest segment, but I don't think it'll be that long.
Okay.
But yeah, if you like us, then
like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe, and shit. That feels weird to say.
Because now you think like you're every other.
Yeah, now just like and
don't forget to click the like button.
After these commercials, it's like all right. Well, fucking say something. Write in the comments. Have an opinion.
Peace.
Bye.
Talking.
Crazy.
Yeah. Dude, relax.
I know you care.
But you need to calm down, okay?
We are going to
end
racism.
Investment in infrastructure
across the board.
and by
Focus.
focus.
One big, beautiful black family.
At a time.